A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
Backache from bending over a hot stove all day? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you escape.
It is midnight, and you are alone. Suddenly the room is plunged into darkness. You sit frozen with terror, because something is there behind you. Something you feared would come. Something from which you must escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and carefully plotted to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight, we escape to London, and a world made strange and terrifying by the workings of an ancient barbaric curse, as Montague R. James tells it in his weird story, Casting the Runes.
My name is Edward Dunning. I'm a scientist. I'm used to dealing with facts, not fairy tales. I'm regarded as Britain's leading authority on medieval life. And as such, I've studied much of the ancient fears and barbaric superstitions of those times. I should have been the first to scoff at any suggestion that the ancient powers of evil, the black magic of Teutonic days, could be believed and practiced in the 20th century. A few weeks ago, I should have laughed had you told me that a curse, a hex, could kill a man. Today, I cannot laugh. It has happened to a man I know of. And now, it's happening to me. My first presentiment of danger came on that day a few weeks ago when I dropped in to see Alfred Smythe, Secretary of the National Science Association, and found him in a state of irritation.
Blast it all, Dunning. I almost wish you hadn't been so brutally honest in your report on that Carswell paper.
Why? What's the trouble?
Oh, he's such a frightful fellow. He's raising a terrible row.
You mean Carswell himself?
Yes, it's bad enough a vicious charlatan like that calling himself a scientist. But now he's taking all his vindictiveness out on me.
Sorry, old chap. It's really me he'd like to get at.
As a matter of fact, that's just what his last letter was about. He wants to know what supposed authority wrote the report rejecting his paper.
You didn't give him my name?
Heavens, no. As a matter of fact, Dunning, I haven't and I won't, and for a very special reason. Call it silly, call it crazy, call it what you will. I have an uncanny feeling about that man Carswell.
Why?
Do you know anything about him?
Nothing. I've never seen him. I only know that he wrote a paper called The Truth of Alchemy. It was hopeless.
Precisely. And why was it hopeless?
Well, besides being abominably written, it was supposed to prove that alchemy, black magic, and such rot actually exists. I think the man really believes it.
Undoubtedly he does, and that's what I mean. He lives in an isolated old house in Warwickshire. He's rarely seen elsewhere, and in his whole career he's written only two things. This paper and a history of witchcraft published 10 years ago.
Yes, of course. I remember now. So that's the man.
Yes, and that book was even worse than this paper. The man has a warped mind. I'm sure he's tried every unhealthy experiment in alchemy, witchcraft, and black magic. There's no telling to what lengths of vindictiveness a man like that might go.
Well, it does sound a bit queer, but...
Not queer, Dunning. Evil.
Oh, come. Man has a right to believe what he likes. He has a right to be angry with me. Here I've glibly scoffed at the man's life's work.
Well, perhaps I'm being overly suspicious and imaginative, but I think there's more than anger involved here, Edward. This may sound fantastic to you, but, well, John Harrington wrote the report condemning that witchcraft book of Carswell's 10 years ago. 3 months later, Harrington was dead.
But, Alfred, what's the connection?
Harrington died under very peculiar circumstances. He was walking home alone late one night, and suddenly he screamed, broke into a run, lost his hat and stick, and climbed up a tree. A dead branch gave way. He fell and broke his neck. No one's ever been able to explain why it happened.
Come now, Alfred, surely you're not suggesting...
I don't know what I'm suggesting. I only know that after he reviewed Carswell's book, John Harrington didn't have a moment's peace. Now you've written an unfavorable review of this paper. If I were you, I should keep that fact well hidden.
Oh, Alfred. Well, that's ridiculous. Yes, I laughed at Alfred Smythe's fears. How could I have known then that I was to feel the same terror, the same agonized fear which gripped the heart of John Harrington as he crouched, panting on the branch of a tree, for another moment or two of life, while beneath him the thing came closer and closer. I'd almost forgotten the incident when, a few nights later, I was riding home on a late train. I was half drowsing in my seat, barely keeping awake by looking idly at the car card at Weston's. The man directly opposite me must have been doing the same, because suddenly I heard him say,
"Here now, what can that one be advertising?"
I followed his eyes to the window beside my head. What I saw brought me bolt upright in my seat.
In memory of John Harrington, died September 18th, 1937, by falling from a tree. 3 months were allowed. Blimey, what do you say that means, sir?
Well, I don't know. But I did know. Smythe had been right. The affair with Carswell was not over, but only begun. I asked the conductor about the card, but he was as puzzled as I was. He had never seen it before. The card must have been put there expressly for me. That meant that Carswell knew it was I who had reviewed his paper. How had he found out? I got the answer the next day. I was in the select manuscript department of the British Museum doing some research in the quiet, almost deserted room. I'd been working steadily for an hour, oblivious to my surroundings, when suddenly, just at my shoulder, I heard a voice.
"Edward Dunning, you are allowed 3 months.
I swung around in my seat. There was no one within 20 feet of me. I sat for a moment, shaken, and then I stooped to pick up the papers I had brushed to the floor. I straightened up to find a stout, elderly gentleman standing in front of me.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
May I give you this paper? I think it should be yours.
Oh, yes, so it is. I thought I had them all.
This one seemed to have slid across the floor.
Thank you very much.
Not at all, sir. Good afternoon.
He walked slowly away and out of the door. A kindly, stout old gentleman. But there was something about him that made me feel strange. I went over to the attendant.
Yes, Mr. Dunning?
Did you notice that gentleman I was just speaking to?
Oh, yes, of course.
Can you tell me his name?
Why, that's Mr. Carswell. As a matter of fact, he was asking about you only the other day.
Asking about me?
Well, he asked who were the great authorities on medieval science. And of course, I told him you were the only one in the country.
Oh, I see.
Would you like to meet him, Mr. Dunning? I'll see if I can...
No. No, thank you. It was as simple as that. Now Carswell knew. What would be his next move? What was I to expect? I reached home at dusk, and trouble stood on my doorstep in the long face and stooped form of my family doctor.
I've had to upset your household arrangements, I'm sorry to say, Dunning. I've had to send both your servants to hospital.
But
What happened?
Something like ptomaine poisoning, I should think. It's nothing serious.
Well, what could have caused it?
Well, that's the rather odd thing. They tell me they bought some shellfish from a hawker and had it for lunch. I've made inquiries, but I can't find that a hawker called at any other house on this street.
Was this the next move? If so, it had succeeded. I was alone in the house, and my nervousness increased as darkness closed in and the hours advanced toward midnight. I went to bed, but almost immediately I thought I heard something. My study door opening downstairs. I went out and leaned over the banister. There was nothing moving, nothing visible. There was only a sudden, surprising gust of warm air playing about my legs. I went back into my room and locked the door. Suddenly, the lights went out. No doubt it was only a blown fuse, but the chills were playing up and down my spine. I went over to the bed and reached for my watch under the pillow. I suppose I wanted to find out the time. I don't know why. But fumbling on the pillow, my hand touched something far different from a watch. It was like a mouth with sharp teeth and hair around it, not human at all. I fled from my bedroom and spent a long and miserable night locked in the spare room, my ear to the door. But nothing came. I was not disturbed again. In the morning, I searched the house and found nothing unusual. But the mark of fear must have been stamped on my face, for Smythe noticed it next day.
Dunning, you look as if you hadn't slept for weeks. Is anything wrong?
I don't know, Alfred. Yes, there is. Carswell knows.
How?
They told him at the museum.
Of course, we should have thought of that. Has anything happened yet?
I don't know. It's too fantastic. It's probably my mind, hypnotic suggestion or something, but like that man Harrington, I have 3 months left.
Edward.
Must have been hearing things. I'm all on edge. I don't know what to think.
John Harrington had a brother, Henry. Perhaps I'd better get you in touch with him. He might know more about this man, Carswell.
Yes, do it. And quickly. 3 months is not a lot of time. It was arranged. That night, I found myself walking down the dark street that led from the railway station to the Harrington home. It must have been along this same street that John Harrington had walked that last night. Where he had broke and run, it must have been one of these trees bordering the lonely road in which he had spent his last horrible moments. The way was dark, and there was no living soul in sight. And suddenly, complete terror gripped me. Somehow I knew that I was being followed. At first I only felt it, and then I heard it. I walked steadily on for a moment, my stomach like ice. It was getting louder, coming closer. Unconsciously, my step quickened. I could barely control myself. I wanted to scream and run. The thing came closer, closer. I confess, I broke and ran madly for my life. I was at a little side street. I turned down it, doubling back toward the railway station. I thought I would never make it. But finally, bright lights loomed before my eyes, and I think that I never have been so grateful for human companionship.
There's no need to run, sir. The 840 won't be along for another 5 minutes.
I felt very foolish. I couldn't bring myself to walk back down that street to Harrington's. I could only take the train home furtively and call Harrington next morning to beg his forgiveness. He seemed very understanding and asked no questions. Undoubtedly, Smythe had told him something about me. At any rate, he agreed to visit me at a place 2 nights later. And when he arrived and was made welcome, he began to talk about his brother.
Yes, Mr. Dunning. John was in a very bad state for weeks before the accident. If that's what it was. The principal thing seemed to be the notion that he was being followed. It became an obsession.
Yes, I know. I don't think his death was an accident.
Then perhaps you can explain it?
No. But I have one clue. Your brother reviewed a book very severely not long before he died. Just lately, I happened to cross the path of the man who wrote that book.
And his name, of course, is Carswell.
That's right.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that does it. Before he died, John was beginning to feel, much against his will, that Carswell was at the bottom of his trouble.
Why?
Well, it doesn't make sense.
None of this does. But tell me.
My brother liked music. He went to all the concerts in town, and he made a hobby of collecting the programs. One night, about 3 months before his death, he brought one home and showed it to me. I nearly missed this one, he said. It seems he'd lost his and was hunting for it under his seat, when a neighbor, a rather stout elderly gentleman, offered to give John his.
The kind gentleman was Mr. Carswell.
Undoubtedly. I started to leaf through the program and noticed on the second page some rather curious letters, carefully written there in black and red ink. Neither of us could make much of it, except that the letters seemed to be runic.
Runes. Runes, of course.
Well, John thought it might be important, and debated whether he shouldn't try to return the program to the stout gentleman. But just then the door blew open, and a gust of air, of strangely warm air, blew into the room. In a flash, it took the program and blew it straight into the fire.
Yes, your brother was right. He should have returned it.
There's nothing to be done then.
No, perhaps not. But do you know what runic letters mean?
Well, they're old pre-Druid script, I believe. The kind of writing the barbaric tribes used long before the Romans invaded Britain.
Yes, that's right. Casting the runes, they used to call it in the old days. Casting the runes.
What do you mean?
Well, it was a curse, a hex. In primitive England, people thought by casting the runes, that is, handing a person a piece of paper with certain runic letters on it, that could put that person out of the way, destroy him. It's an old superstition. And the only way to lift the curse was to return the paper to the one who gave it to you. To give it back without his knowing it.
Well, I don't believe that kind of nonsense.
Neither do I.
Then what was it that killed John?
I don't know. Perhaps his fear of the runes, perhaps brooding about it, becoming neurotic, thinking he saw things and heard things and touched things that weren't there. Perhaps his own mind drove him to death.
And what's the difference once you're dead?
No difference at all.
Casting the runes. Oh, it's rubbish.
Yes, of course, but... Good heavens.
What is it?
I just remembered that day at the British Museum. He cast the runes on me. I went swiftly to the writing table, Harrington close behind me. My portfolio was there, full of the scribbled notes I'd been working on that day in the museum. And as I took it in my shaking hands and began leaping desperately through them, one strip of thin, light paper slipped and fluttered toward the open window with uncanny quickness. But Harrington was even quicker and slammed the window shut just in time.
Got it?
Oh, thank heaven. If it were lost or destroyed, like your brother's...
Then you wouldn't be able to return it to Mr. Carswell. Yes. Look at it. It's identical with the one John got.
I looked at the flimsy paper. The characters, carefully traced in red and black, were runes, all right. That ancient language used by the Aborigines of prehistoric Britain. I couldn't decipher them. But as Harrington and I stood looking into each other's eyes, each of us could read the other's thoughts. Science or not, 20th century or not, this sheet of foolscap spells death for its possessor.
It spells death for you.
It must be returned.
Yes, I know.
It must go back in such a way that it doesn't... that he doesn't know he's received it. That means we can't simply mail it.
No, we can't.
We must do it personally. That'll take doing.
Well, he knows you by sight, doesn't he?
Yes.
You must shave your beard. It'll alter your appearance. He might strike any time.
I have 3 months. That's what the warning said.
We've got to make good on this Dunning. I've searched 10 years for my brother's murderer, and now he must not escape.
I dare not go near Carswell, so Harrington volunteered to keep a watch on him, to let me know when our chance came to return the runes, if it was ever to come. It was only a night or two after Harrington was there that I arrived home, and found the calendar had come in the mail. When I examined it, I found everything after November 19th had been torn out. The next night, I had another envelope of the mail. This time it was a woodcut, an illustration torn out of a book, showing a dark, moonlit road and a man walking on it. And right behind him came a huge, dark shape, some awful demon creature. Under it were written some lines from the Ancient Mariner, and as I sat alone and read them aloud, I felt that now familiar gust of warm air playing about my legs. The man walks on and turns no more his head, because he knows a frightful fiend doth close behind him tread. Now I knew the face of my terror, and it was with me always. Walking down the dark street at night, I heard its footsteps behind me. In my lonely house at midnight, it roamed the halls. Like the Ancient Mariner and John Harrington, I never turned to look. I couldn't. My nerves were going, and I could do nothing but wait. The days, the weeks slipped by, and still Harrington had no plan. I checked off the days on the calendar Carswell had sent. Now there were 8 days remaining, then 6, then 3, 2, 1. It was the evening of the 18th. My last day on Earth was to begin at midnight. I was sitting alone in my living room, bathed in perspiration, fighting to keep my nerves in check. Suddenly, I felt that warm gust of air. I listened. There were soft footsteps. A shadow seemed to cross the hall door. And then the footsteps blended into a loud banging.
No, not yet. I still got 1 day more. Not yet.
It's me.
Harry. Harry.
What's the matter, man? What is it?
It was you knocking on the door. Your footsteps.
Yes, of course.
Oh, thank him. I thought...
Look, man, you've got to pull yourself together. It's tonight we have our chance.
What chance?
Carswell leaves Victoria Station by boat train tonight at 10. I'll get on with him there. You take the car I brought and drive to Croydon. Get on the train there. And be sure to bring the paper.
Yes, I have it.
You've shaved already. Good. Everything depends on his not recognizing you.
Mr. Harrington. Suppose he changes his mind. Suppose he doesn't take that trip. My time runs out tomorrow.
He'll be there, and you'll do it. You'll do it well. You've got to.
I stood on the platform at Croydon, my mind in a daze. I thought the train would never come, but it did. I saw Harrington at the window. He stared coolly at me. Of course, there was to be no sign of recognition. I entered the coach and slowly made my way down the aisle to the compartment where Harrington sat. Opposite him, staring full into my face, was Carswell. He looked up as I sat down. His eyes were heavy-lidded, his face bland. It was impossible to tell whether he knew. The train started. The next stop was Dover, the end of the line. My last chance. It was time to cast the rules. It was a strange ride. Carswell and I seated face to face, staring into each other's eyes. Harrington off to the side, pulling at his face with twitching fingers. If I could have only had a few whispered moments with him to plan our strategy, but that was impossible. The moments dragged tortuously. No one moved. Then suddenly Carswell leaned forward.
I beg your pardon, sir. Haven't we met?
Met? Well, I don't think so, sir. Not unless you're in the plumbing business.
Plumbing? No. Hardly.
I hadn't planned it that way. The words, the accent, just seemed to come by themselves. And Carswell sat back, an enigmatic expression on his face. I wished desperately to know what he was thinking. Then suddenly he got up and went out into the corridor. But this is my chance.
I was about to slip over to his bags to see if there were ways to secrete the rooms within them, when I caught Harrington's eye and read a warning in them. Carswell from the corridor was watching, waiting to see if we recognized each other. I muttered a prayer of thanks I hadn't moved. Carswell came back and took his seat. As he did so, wild, exultant hope surged up in my throat, for something slipped off his seat and dropped noiselessly to the floor. It was his ticket case, and he didn't see it. Small cardboard ticket case with a pocket on the cover. If I could just get to it and slip that tiny piece of paper into that pocket. For 15 agonizing minutes, I sat there and stared at it. If only Carswell would go out. But he sat stolidly staring straight ahead. We were coming into the outskirts of Dover, the train slowing down. Suddenly, Harrington stood up, reached up to the rack above Carswell to get his coat and bag. I stared at him blankly for a moment, surprised by his sudden clumsiness. And then I realized what he was up to. The bag, the coat, the briefcase all came tumbling down upon Carswell.
What the devil?
Oh, I say I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry.
Clumsy fool, you might have injured me. What were you trying to do?
Well,
it was my only chance. Carswell stood facing Harrington. I reached down, got the ticket case, and with trembling fingers slid the paper into the pocket. He turned sharply to me, and I extended the case toward him.
Excuse me, sir. Is this yours? Yes, my ticket case. Where'd you find it? Here on the floor. Must have dropped off when this. I'm much obliged to you, sir. Not at all. Not at all.
He looked at me fiercely, his rage at Harrington still twisting his face into a devil's mask. Then he glanced briefly into the ticket case and put it into his pocket. On the railway pier at Dover, Harrington and I followed a few steps behind Carswell. I felt like I might faint. Carswell went straight to the gangway of the boat, and there the purser stopped him.
Sir, does your friend have a ticket? My friend? What the devil do you mean? I'm traveling alone.
Well, that's funny. I could have sworn there was another gentleman right there beside you, walking just at your elbow.
Well, there isn't. And I suggest you see an oculist.
Oh, I didn't see. I just felt. Sorry, sir. Must have been your rugs. My mistake.
Come on, Dunning. Our job's done.
I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake and listened. But there were no footsteps, no warm gusts of air, nothing to disturb me. All day I felt remarkably free, although this was to have been my last day on Earth. But only just now, when Harrington came in, could I really relax.
Well, Dunning, have you seen the afternoon paper yet?
I know. Not yet.
Well, here, look at it. On the second page. There.
Abbeville, France. An English traveler examining the front of St. Wolfram's Cathedral today was struck on the head and killed instantly by a stone falling from the scaffolding. A note of mystery was added by the fact that although the cathedral was undergoing repairs, no workman was on the scaffolding at the time of the accident. The traveler was identified by papers found on him as a Mr. Carswell of Warwickshire.
Of course, it could have been an accident.
Yes. Yes, it could have been.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you Casting the Runes by Montague R. James. Adapted for radio by Irving Ravitch and John Dunkel, with John McIntyre as Edward Dunning, Jan Wolfe as Harrington, and Bill Conrad as Carswell. The special musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Fure. Next week.
You are trapped in a hidden valley, high in the Andes, walled in by sheer rock precipices, and surrounding you, closing in on you, is a band of blind men who want your eyes.
Next week, we escape with H.G. Wells' gripping story, The Country of the Blind. Good night, then, until this same time next week when we again offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Are you burned up at the high price of turkeys? Can't get eggs for your pumpkin pie? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape.
You're trapped in a remote valley of the Andes, walled in by sheer rock precipices, and surrounding you, closing in on you, is a band of blind men who want your eyes.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson and carefully plotted to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight, we escape to the high mountains of Ecuador and to a remarkable world where sight is unknown, as H.G. Wells imagined it in his curious story, The Country of the Blind.
My name is Ibarra. I am a mining engineer in Quito, Ecuador, high in the towering Andes. And up until a year ago, my chief sport was mountain climbing. My last climb was an attempt to scale the remote and forbidding peak of Pariscotopetl, a 20,000-foot crag unconquered by man. It is unconquered still. 3,000 feet from the icy summit, our party turned back and fled for their lives. All of us escaped except one, a guide named Nunez, who slipped and fell over the precipice, disappearing into the vast chasm that yawned 10,000 feet beneath us. The horror of that man's fall has haunted my dreams for a year. Because of it, I have forsaken mountain climbing for the rest of my life. And that decision still stands, even though today I have seen Nunez. He was sitting on the steps of my shack when I arrived at the mine this morning. At first I didn't recognize him. He was so much changed. I thought he was a ragged beggar asking alms.
Is it you, Senor Ibarra?
My name is Ibarra, yes. What do you want?
You do not know me, Senor.
I know. You look like a man I knew once, but he is...
Dead? Dead on the slopes of Pariscotopetl?
Nunez. No, it couldn't be you.
Nunez. That is my name, Senor. At least that is the name I remember.
But you fell. I saw you fall.
Yes.
It's impossible that you could have lived.
Perhaps the gods of the mountain had some reason to spare me.
Nunez, if we'd had any idea that you were alive, but you went down thousands of feet. We couldn't even attempt to find your body.
I know. I do not blame you. You could not have reached me. And if you had, I should not have welcomed you at first. But then later...
What do you mean, Nunez?
Senor, you will not believe what I have to tell.
I can hardly believe that I'm seeing you, talking to you. But what has happened to you?
You remember that night, the night I fell?
Yes.
We had been toiling all day, inching our way up a steep ice wall. And as darkness came, we found a narrow ledge, barely 3 feet wide.
It's not very wide, but we can get our shoulder wall up, cut off some of this wind.
Well, that'll be welcome.
Yes, but first we'll rest a moment.
Look at that icy devil up there, glistening in the moonlight.
There's another 3,000 feet of sheer ice wall to the top.
Well, I can see why no one's ever made it. Think we should go on?
I don't know. Nunes, what do you think?
It is not my place to say, senor. I was hired to guide you to the top. I agreed.
What do you really think?
If I believed in the gods of the mountain, as the Indians do, I should be frightened now.
Why?
Because we have invaded the Forbidden Circle. This part of the Andes is unmapped and unknown, senor.
And therefore shrouded in superstition, eh?
It is an easy thing to believe strange things in this white loneliness.
Some of the legends are really fascinating. I've heard of one, something about a hidden valley called the Country of the Blind.
Yes. It is supposed to be somewhere down there below us. A fertile valley which was settled many centuries ago, and then cut off by the great landslide of Arauca.
But why the Country of the Blind?
Well, even before it was isolated, the people developed a strange illness. All of them slowly went blind. After that, their children were born blind. And the legend is that the valley was the home of the mountain gods. It was too beautiful for human eyes.
It's odd. Well, it's all nonsense.
Yes, of course.
Would be pleasant to find it, though. You know the old proverb, in the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is king?
I doubt that we could ever find it. I even doubt if it exists.
Of course not. I was only joking.
Yes. Well, now if you're arrested, we'll make the shelter wall.
Right. I'll give you a hand in a minute. Believe me about it. For 2 pesos, I'd give up this time. I never realized
Senor, don't slip me!
Hang on! Nunes! Nunes!
In one horrible instant, my foot had slipped on the treacherous ledge and I'd gone over, falling far out into the icy black night, falling down, down. I fell perhaps 1,000 feet. Then I felt a heavy stinging impact of snow. I'd fallen on an almost perpendicular snow slope. And now I was sliding down, down, tumbling over and over. And then suddenly I realized that my own motion had almost stopped. And it was the snow that was moving. I was riding an avalanche. At almost the same moment, I went over the second precipice. It was higher than the first, much higher, perhaps 4,000 feet. I fell with the snow for what seemed minutes, every second expecting the terrible final impact. But the impact never came. Miracle of miracles, that sheer wall blended almost imperceptibly into another steep snow slope. And again I was sliding. Gradually, as the arc of the slope curved away, I felt myself slow down. And finally I rolled to a stop and lay still. When I awoke, it was morning, and I was covered with snow. I shook off the cold white blanket on my chest and rested a moment. And then I rolled over on my back and looked up. My heart almost stopped as I saw from where I'd fallen. Why, the mountain towered 10,000 feet above me. Then carefully I felt of myself. My clothes were torn. I was bruised and bleeding. I ached in every muscle, but I had not a single broken bone. I lay there and offered up a prayer to the gods of the mountain. Far below me lay a lush valley sparkling in the morning sunlight. I could see the stately trees and the green meadows fresh with dew. I started down the mountain, but it was still an arduous descent. The farther down I got, the more I realized the beauty of the scene. Why, this was a hidden paradise I'd fallen into, and I was the first man ever to see it. So I thought, but I was wrong. I realized that first when I saw the cultivation in the meadows, and then the walks, well-kept stone walks laid in a symmetrical pattern all over the valley. And then I saw them. There were men and women lying under the trees and resting in the fields. Nearby, a collection of windowless huts marked a village, and the plastering of the houses was done in a wild variety of colors. I thought to myself, the plasterer who did that must have been blind as a bat. Then I saw 2 of the men quite close to me. They were standing on a bridge over the little stream. They were dressed in odd, loose clothing, and there was a strange look about their faces. They failed to notice me as I approached until I shouted. Suddenly they looked up attentively in my direction. I waved wildly at them, but they took no notice. Why, the fools must be blind. Blind? Could it be that I have fallen into the country of the blind? In the country of the blind, a one-eyed man can be king. Hello there. You needn't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I come in peace.
It is a man, or a spirit come down from the rocks.
Oh, I'm a man, all right. Just like you, but I've had a miraculous escape, and now I find myself here in your valley.
Valley? Valley?
Come hither. Let me feel of you.
Yes, certainly. Here, my arm. Is my face. You see, I am a man, like yourself. Here, feel my lips. They move with speech. Oh, careful there. Gently, those are my eyes.
Eyes? Eyes?
That is strange. Feel this Correa.
Yes, I feel.
Careful. Feel the eyelids flutter?
He is but imperfectly formed. Some strange bulge there. Unseemly.
No. You see, your eyes are shrunken in, but mine are whole. I can see.
See? Pedro, he is a strange wild one. Where does he come from?
He must have come down out of the rock.
No, from over the mountains, out of the country beyond there where men can see. From Bogota, where there are 100,000 people and a city stretches out of sight.
Sight? What strange words he uses, without meaning. And feel the coarseness of his hair, like a llama's.
Our fathers have told us men may be made by forces of nature. It is the warmth of things, and moisture, and rottenness.
Let us lead him to the elders.
But no one need lead me. I can see.
See?
Oh, yes, of course, I can... I didn't see your water bucket.
His senses are still imperfect. He stumbles and talks unmeaning words. Lead him by the hand, Pedro.
But look, Oh, well, all right. These people had been blind for centuries. They had forgotten even the words associated with seeing. And they thought I was an idiot, only half-formed. Especially when they led me into the pitch blackness of one of their windowless huts. And I stumbled over someone.
8,000 pardons, Medina Salota. He's a clumsy one.
I'm sorry I fell down. I couldn't see in the darkness.
Who is this? And what is he saying? He is but newly formed, good father. He has come down from the rocks. He stumbles as he walks and mingles words that mean nothing with his speech.
He is a wild man out of the rocks.
No, I come from Bogota, over the mountains.
You hear? Bogota. He uses wild words. His mind is hardly formed. He has only the beginnings of speech.
Bogota?
Yes. I come from the great world where men have eyes and see.
That must be his name, Bogota.
He stumbled twice as we came thither.
He must be taught.
No, you don't understand. I can see, but not in the dark. To you, darkness or light is all the same, but to me, to us who can see, to us outside in the world beyond the mountains...
Mountains? What are mountains?
Very well, then, beyond the rocks.
There is nothing beyond the rocks. That is the end of the world.
Oh, but surely you must realize the sky above covers more than just this valley.
Sky? Above? There is nothing above but the roof of rock. He is very raw, my children. He shall have to be taught from the beginnings. Now take him away. Feed him.
It shall be done, good father.
But guide him. See that he does not stumble over my daughter again.
Do not fear, Father. I shall guide him myself and feed him.
Very well.
Come. Take my hand.
Thank you. It'll be a pleasure to get outside again, out of this darkness.
Come this way.
Yes. What is your name?
Medina Sarote.
Mine is Juan Nunez. Oh, sunlight. Oh, this is better. And now I may look at you. Why, You're beautiful. I cannot tell you what a wonderful thing you are to see.
Please, you must be careful.
Why?
If you do not learn quickly and cease speaking such strange words, they may not be so kind to you. They might be angry. They might even destroy you.
This thought had not occurred to me, and suddenly I had a twinge of fear. Still, the proverb kept running through my mind. In the country of the blind, a one-eyed man is king. But try as I would, I could not make them understand my wonderful gift of sight. They thought me stupid and untaught, almost an idiot. Day by day, I learned their peaceful ways, but they could not learn mine. It was beginning to get on my nerves. Theirs too, perhaps.
Bogota? Bogota, come hither. Bogota, you move not.
No, and I won't, you old beetle. I'll show you. I'll leave the path.
Bogota, trample not on the grass. It is not allowed.
How did you know I stepped on the grass?
I heard, of course.
Heard, but I didn't make a sound.
Why do you not come when I call you? Can you not hear the path as you walk?
I can see it.
There is no such word as see. Cease this folly and follow the sound of my feet.
Oh, my time will come.
You will learn. There is much to learn in the world.
Has no one ever told you in the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is king?
Blind? What is blind?
Oh, never mind.
Bogota, I must warn you. Just keep quiet and learn. And stop this nonsense about seeing.
Nonsense, is it? I'll show you I've taken enough of your insults. Unformed mind. Got no sense yet. I'll be king here. I can see and I'll be king.
Bogota, stop it.
No, I'm through with your orders. I'll show you what an advantage sight can be. I can hit you and hurt you, and you can't see me to strike back.
Bogota, put down that spade.
You devil, your ears are sharp, aren't they?
Bogota, there must be no violence.
By heaven, I'll hit you if you come any closer. I swear I will.
Put down that spade and come off the grass.
You don't understand. You are blind, and I can see. I can see.
Bogota.
I'll hurt you. I swear I will.
Put down that spade.
Leave me alone! I hit him with a spade and ran. Over the wall, outside the valley, back to the rocks, back to the cliff I'd come from. When I reached that sheer rock wall, I knew there was no place to go. For 2 days and nights, I stayed outside the valley. I grew hungry and cold. Then I realized the hopelessness of my position. I was trapped. I must spend the rest of my life here. There was no way out. So I went back. I confess, O chief of the elders, I was mad, I admit. I was only newly made.
That is better. And do you still think you can see?
No. That was folly. The words mean nothing less than nothing.
And what is overhead?
Rock. There's a roof above the world, a roof of rock and very smooth.
Very well. And...
Please, before you ask me any more, give me food or I shall die.
Very well, give him food. Medina Salate. And after that, we must put him to the most menial tasks in the village. Guard him well. And perhaps he shall learn yet.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that is better. You are kind, Medina Sarote. Very kind.
I am glad you came back.
You are? If they were all like you, I should never have run away.
What was that word you said I was?
Beautiful. You are. But even your eyes, they're not shrunken depressions like the others.
It means something nice, beautiful.
Something very nice, Medina Sarote. Tell me, why is it you have no husband?
I have a disfigurement. These long hairs.
Oh, your eyelashes? Oh, but they're beautiful.
They are considered a disfigurement.
You're the most lovely girl in the valley. But they wouldn't know, would they? You have no lover?
No.
Medina Sarote, what do you think of me? Do you think of me as an idiot like all the rest do?
Oh, no. No, you have much to learn, but you will learn it, I'm sure. And you are kind and gentle. And your voice is soft. You speak words that are soft and warm. No one has ever spoken such words to me.
And I shall speak them often, Madame Soroti. You are the only one in this valley, in this whole world I care for. And so it began. I, the village idiot, the slave boy who dreamed to be king. I, with my eyes still whole, fell in love with Medina Sarote, the daughter of the elder of the village. Only to her could I open my heart without fear. Only to her could I speak of the beauty I could see around me. Oh, it is a beautiful valley, Medina Sarote. Green with grass and yellow with sunlight. And flowers, bright flowers dotting the hills. And in the cool of the night, the stars gleam like diamonds in the sky.
Oh, the words sound lovely. But what are stars?
Stars? Why, No, you wouldn't understand.
And what do you mean, in the cool of the night? You still get that confused one. The night is warm. The day is cool.
Oh, no, it is you here who have them backwards. Because the darkness means nothing to you. You work in the cool of the night and sleep in the heat of the day, but...
You are teasing me.
No. Oh. What does it matter? All that matters is you. You. Here beside me, Medina Sarote. I love you.
And I love you.
I know they still think me an idiot, but you listen to what I say, and you don't think me an idiot, do you?
Oh, no. I like to hear you speak.
Then, would you marry me?
Yes. Yes, Juan. I will marry you.
No, I will not have it.
But, Father...
He is an idiot. He has delusions. He cannot do anything right.
But he is getting better. He's better than he was. And he is strong and kind. Stronger and kinder than anyone in the world. And he loves me. And I love him.
No, I will not have it.
Great, sire. If you please.
What is it, good doctor?
I have examined Bogota, and the case is clear to me. I think very probably he might be cured.
Huh? And how might that be done?
His brain is affected by something. I believe I know what it is. Those queer things he calls eyes. Where we have but an agreeable depression, he has great lumps with flaps over them that move and long hairs. Consequently, his brain is in a constant state of irritation.
But what can be done to cure him?
A very simple surgical operation. Remove the cause of the irritation. We will merely cut out his eyes.
But, Juan, they say it will make you well. It will make you look like us.
But you don't understand, Medina Sarote. My world is sight. You would not want me to lose my most precious possession?
I don't know.
There are so many beautiful things to see. The flowers, the far sky with its drifting clouds, the sunsets, the stars. And you. If only just to see you it is good to have sight. And I would never see you again.
Juan, I love to hear you say these things, even though I know it is just your imagination.
But, my dear, these things are real.
No, they are fancy. This is real. If you will let them cut out your eyes, we can be together always.
Then you want me to?
Oh, if you would. If only you would.
What else can I do?
My dearest one. My dearest with a tender voice. I will repay you.
Oh, Medina.
Be brave. And carry my voice in your thoughts. Now I must go. tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow will be forever.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Medina. I suppose I knew it then, when I said that. I only meant to go up on the rocks and look out over the valley, to spend my last days feasting my eyes, my precious eyes, on the wonderful, beautiful world of light and color. But when I got there, it was too beautiful, too lovely, this valley, this home of the mountain gods. Beautiful and forbidden. I drank it in. The green of the fields, the blue of the gently curving stream, the orange of the lichen in the rocky crevices. I climbed higher to see the great snow-capped peaks towering above and away to the distant sky, and still higher as the shadows turned the snow to purple and crimson and deep blue. The valley now was far below and as beautiful as a painting. But like a painting, it seemed unreal. Medina Sarote was small and far away, a distant dream. And the world of sight was here, all around, overpowering, wonderful. I turned and began to climb up that sheer rock wall. How many months it took me to make my way out over those mountains, over glaciers and snowfields and sheer precipices, I cannot guess. How I lived through the cold and hunger of it, I cannot tell you. But I'm here at last, back from the country of the blind.
Good heavens, man. What an experience.
Yes. Terrible and wonderful.
But you aren't sorry you came back?
Sorry? I see her face clearly now. It is the only thing I see.
Nunez, come, you need food. Here, take my hand.
Thank you. Where is it, Senor Ibarra?
Nunez.
Yes. The gods of the mountain have had their revenge. Those months of crawling over the snow and ice, with the sun glaring down. Yes. I am blind.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight presented The Country of the Blind by H.G. Wells, adapted for radio by John Dunkel, with Paul Frees as Nunez, Peggy Weber as Medina Sarote, Bill Conrad as Ibarra, and Harry Bartell as Correa. The special musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Fewer. Next week,
when you're tired from a hard day at the office, or your back aches from bending over a hot stove, next week at the same time, when you want to get away from it all, we offer you Escape.
This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You are alone in the dark forest, and behind you somewhere is the werewolf waiting to drink your blood. And you desperately desire the impossible, to escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson,
and carefully plotted to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to the backward world of Eastern Europe, where ancient superstitions still live in the minds of men. Tonight we escape with Geoffrey Household's grim story, Taboo.
Among semi-civilized peoples, there has always been widespread belief in werewolves, those fantastic creatures supposedly able to turn from man or woman into wolf and back again at will. This belief is still widespread among the simple folk of eastern Hungary, in the district around Zweibergen, high in the gloomy Carpathian Mountains, and I must admit not without some reason. Before the late war, I often spent my vacations in that area, drawn to the dark loneliness by the pull of my Slavic blood. It was the same with her, perhaps, and our kindred ancestry no doubt drew us together. Her name was Kira Vaughan, and she was there with her husband, a pleasant young Englishman. They were obviously much in love, and I felt almost like an intruder when I found myself the only other vacationer in the village. However, they made me welcome and invited me to dinner. It was an excellent dinner.
Won't you have some more strawberries, Mr. Shirabi?
Oh? Thank you, no, Mrs. Vaughan. I've eaten far too much already. I cannot say when I've had so excellent a dinner.
Thank you.
I'm sure I shall get nothing like it at the inn.
I should hate to have to stay at the inn.
You see, Shiraviev, my wife is one of those delightful creatures who cannot stand to be shut in. She must run free, preferably in the woods, with her hair streaming in the wind. She's quite unusual.
Indeed she is, my dear Vaughan. And you may count yourself most fortunate.
Oh, I do. Where else should I find so good a cook?
Oh, very true. I've never tasted venison quite like that tonight. Delightful.
Thank you.
Another of her little victories. She delights in outdoing the ordinary housewife. She disdains the village shop and gets her meat right off the hoof.
Oh? You do your own hunting?
Oh, dear, no.
Not that. She's much too kind-hearted and loving a person for that. She's found a new source. The district game warden brings fresh venison to our door.
Oh, it's not he, but his son.
True. The game warden's slightly moronic son, who is, I'm sure, in love with her.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Oh, not so. It's quite understandable. I'm beginning to fall in love with her myself.
You see, my dear.
Thank you, sir.
Seriously, though, I can understand this wild desire to be free. This wish to, as you put it, run in the woods with the wind in your hair. It is some legacy of our Slavic blood, no doubt. Yours and mine and the game warden's moronic son. Somehow we feel at home in these dark forests.
Oh, you too.
Yes.
And I don't. I confess it, I don't. There's something here that frightens me. Something strange and inhuman and taboo.
Darling.
I'll confess something, Shiraviev. I don't like Kira to go out into these forests alone. Maybe I'm afraid that someday this emotional impulse of hers will get the better of her and she'll just disappear. Like those two men last week.
Oh? What was that? Did I miss some exciting happening?
No, not really. Though you'd think so to hear the villagers talk. A fellow coming home through the woods after dark just disappeared. Probably got fed up with life here in the village and lit out for Budapest.
And, what about the other one?
Oh, yes. Well, a search party went out the next day to look for the fellow. When they got back, they found one of their party was missing. Evidently, he'd taken the opportunity to skip out, too.
Is that what you really think?
Well, why not, my dear? If those men had been done away with, it might have been by something supernatural. And there's no such thing.
But might it not have been some wild animal?
Oh, the bears around here are harmless and the wolves are not in pack. At any rate, there would have been some sign, some blood, track, something. There was nothing. They simply disappeared, vanished, skipped out.
Richard, how can you be so callous?
You see the paradox? My wife, who loves the woods, believes the fantastic tales of the villagers. I, who confess to finding the woods strange and frightening, do not believe them.
Perhaps it is because you are frightened that you are afraid to believe them. What do the villagers say?
Well, you know this district well enough. They're talking of werewolves and such tommy rot. Oh, it's utterly fantastic.
Yes, to you, an Englishman, it would be.
And it isn't to you?
Fantastic, yes, I suppose, but perhaps Mrs. Vaughan and I, who feel at home in this forest, can understand and believe such fantasy a little more easily than you.
Yes, I remember many times as a child, I dreamt of being an animal. I thought then that I would love it. The freedom of the forest.
Exactly. That primitive instinct is so deep within us all. A heritage of some dim, distant past. In us Slavs, it lies closer to the surface. It takes very little to bring it to light.
Yes, that is true.
Well, you've placed my wife in a new life, Shuravyev. You'll have me suspecting her of changing into a wolf and running out to the forest to murder people.
Oh, please, Vaughn. You take me too literally. And besides, it is a shame to spoil so delightful a dinner with so gloomy a conversation.
Right. Shall we go into the living room? There's a cheerful fire in there. Oh, yes? What is it, Frida?
Beg your pardon, sir. But a message just came from the village.
Oh? What is it?
They want you and Mr. Shuravyev to come down there now. They're organizing another search party.
What?
Yes. There's another man missing.
Kira! Catch her, Shuravyev. She's fainted.
It was only then I realized that these people were under a terrible tension. I was to learn very quickly that the whole village shared it. Every able-bodied man in the district was at the inn when we arrived. The magistrate explained the situation.
The grocer. He went into the forest late this afternoon hoping to bag a blackcock for his supper. A little after dusk, a solitary shot was heard. That was 3 hours ago, and he has not returned.
But only 3 hours? Isn't there a chance that he might still return?
A chance, perhaps, but the other two did not. It will do no harm to search for him. We may still be in time to save his life.
We searched most of the night, and then next morning Vaughn and I went out again. We climbed to my favorite spot for hunting blackcock, and then followed the trail down to the village, the trail the missing grocer would have taken. I was beginning to be a little exasperated at Vaughn. He seemed to be so casual and uninterested, as if he were convinced that this one too had merely skipped out. But I underestimated him. He was a skilled tracker, and suddenly he did show some interest.
Wait a minute. Someone has turned aside from the path here.
Hmm?
He was in a hurry. I wonder why.
I think you are right. There are some broken branches.
Why? Why here?
It's hardly likely anyone would go plunging into that thicket unless he had a reason.
Wait. See that big white rock behind the thicket? When you're being followed, it's comforting to have a clear space around you. You'd feel safe up on top of that rock with a gun in your hands, if you got there in time.
You may be right. Let's go up.
Righto.
We forced our way through the underbrush to the rock. It was 30 feet high on the downslope side, and a hot spring at the foot of it bubbled out of a cavity scarcely 2 feet wide. We made our way up to the slope, around it, and came out on top. There was nothing there except for some ivy in the cracks, and one small, stunted tree.
Aha! Look at that.
Where?
The tree. The entire base has been shattered by a charge at close quarters. Perhaps that was the shot that was heard.
Well, you're right, it must be. They say there is always a tree between you and it.
What do you mean, it?
The werewolf.
Well, this must have been a baby one then. That mark is only 6 inches off the ground. No. I think the man's gun went off as he fell. Perhaps he was followed too close as he scrambled up. About here would be where his body would have fallen.
Do you see anything? I don't. No blood stain.
Yeah, well, wait. Look here.
Oh, but it's just a tiny spot.
Well, it's enough. It's blood, all right. And something more. A tiny bit of tissue.
Let me see. Yes. Brain tissue. Must have come from a deep wound in the skull, made by something like an arrow or a bird's beak. Or maybe even a sharp tooth.
But where's the body? There is absolutely no other sign. No evidence of its being dragged off anywhere.
No, I can't see any either. Very strange. But at least we know one thing, Vaughn. This man did not just skip out. This man was dead or dying. When we brought our information back, the excitement of the village mounted. The peasants crossed themselves, and at the inn, the old tales were being told.
That's old Weitz, the game warden, talking now. And Josef Weitz, his son, beside him.
The moronic son?
Yes. The old man was a character, too. Listen.
The biggest one my grandfather had seen.
and it followed him in the forest. Time after time, he met it at twilight outside his cabin, and time after time he fired at it point blank, but he couldn't hurt it. Then he pounded a silver finger and loaded his gun with it. One shot and the wolf disappeared. But next day, they found Heinrich the cobbler dying in his house with a beaten silver coin in his belly.
Oh, fools! You believe such stupid talk?
Joseph!
My grandfather used to tell the same story. Only when he told it, it happened to his grandfather. Anyone can see it didn't happen at all. Such things can't happen.
Joseph, you call your father a liar?
I do.
Well, far from being a moron, Joseph seems to have more sense than the others.
Perhaps. Joseph, you're not afraid of this werewolf then, eh?
I? No.
Why not? The whole village is frightened.
I'm used to walking alone in the woods at night. You've got to be a part of the forest, and you'll not be afraid of it.
You do believe in werewolves then, eh?
I don't say a man can turn into a wolf, no. But I can understand why he'd want to.
Your theory again, Sharavyev.
Yes. I think I understand that too, Joseph. But what does it feel like?
It feels as if the woods had got under your skin, and you want to walk wild and crouch at the knees.
Yes. I think he's perfectly right.
And you explain it by some primitive urge?
Possibly. There may be many reasons. Physical hunger could be one. We sometimes forget that man was once a fleet-footed hunting animal with all the necessary instincts.
Hunger? Yes, we all know about that. About what it can do to a man.
I've been trapped in a cliff for 5 days. I know.
None of you have suffered hunger as we did in the prison camp during the war. None of you knows what it is to eat.
Joseph, let's not talk about it. He gets so upset remembering.
Well, we'll have to go on searching for the body and for the werewolf.
You'll not find it. Not until you arm yourselves with silver bullets.
Perhaps it is gone now, whatever it is. The search parties may have frightened it away.
It wasn't frightened by the first search party. It simply took one of them. Now it is still here. And it will strike again. You may be sure of that.
The whole village believed that Joseph Weiss was right. They traveled in the woods by twos now. No one went alone. For a week, village life was disrupted. The men beat the forest. The women tried to comfort each other. Kira wore herself out trying to be useful. The village women could not help loving her. But there was something else. Something strange. One day I spoke to Frida, the maid, about it.
Yes, she is a strange one, Mr. Sharivia. Even now I have seen her going out to walk alone in the woods at twilight. The women in the village think she is possessed.
What do you mean, possessed?
I hesitate to say, sir.
Come, tell me.
They are beginning to say sometimes the werewolf can be a woman.
At first, the suggestion seemed so ridiculous to me that I hesitated to speak of it. But then I decided to tell Vaughn before this rumor could reach Kira herself. He was naturally much upset.
That settles it, Sharavyev. We've got to do something.
Something, yes, but what?
There's only one thing we can do. Track down this supposed werewolf.
But that's what we've been trying to do for a week. How can we
It's really very simple. We'll offer him bait.
Bait? Who will be this bait?
You and I, Sharavyev. If you're game.
Why, yes, of course I'm game.
Good.
But how? Are you going to tie me to a tree and watch out with a gun?
That's about right. Only we'd even tie you up. And since it was my idea, you can have first turn with the gun. Are you a good shot?
Right.
This is no time for false modesty.
Yes, I'm a good shot.
Very well. It'll be night, and we'll have to shoot with only the moonlight.
Where do we go? To the rock?
Exactly. And the sooner the better. Tonight?
Tonight.
And say nothing, absolutely nothing, to anybody. Especially to Kira.
I understand. This is between us. Either we win, or we simply disappear. It was difficult getting away without telling Kira what we were going to do. She seemed to sense that something was wrong, and she sat staring after us with strange, angry eyes. In the village, Vaughn and I parted and made our ways to the rock separately. I reached there first and settled myself on top of the rock, almost covered by the ivy, the gun across my knees. Presently, Vaughn appeared on the path, and I gave the signal that I was there and ready. The trap was set. In the eerie stillness of the dark forest, we waited. Vaughn paced slowly on the path. I kept the gun sight trained a yard in back of him as he walked. Minutes passed in silence. Hours went by. Nothing happened. It was almost midnight, the end of our vigil. Vaughn waved his hand and started off down the trail. He would go fast in case he was followed, taking a shortcut down an old timber slide. He'd be in the village in 10 minutes. I was to follow presently. And then suddenly I got an intense feeling of dread. I was alone on the rock. My spine tingled, and then I heard a quick rustle in the ivy behind me. Something brushed my face. It was only a bird. A night bird had lit in the ivy and now swooshed past me and flew away. My nerves were still tingling when I got back to the village. Next day, when I went to see Vaughn, he gave me a warning glance. Kira was suspicious. I could see the question in her eyes when she greeted me.
So, here is the other culprit. Which of you is most to blame for keeping such late hours?
Why, I suppose to keep peace in the family. I should say it is I.
No, you can't get him off that easily.
I'm the only culprit, my dear. You see, I've never hunted deer at night. I asked Sharaviev to help me.
I suppose you shoot the poor things while they sleep.
Oh, no, while they're having their dinner, if possible.
You're cruel and heartless, both of you.
Oh, it's no use letting us start an argument, Sharaviev. I'll go get us a drink.
Oh, yes, thank you. I'd like that. Why do you look at me like that?
Was the hunting good last night?
No, not very. We didn't get anything, as you see. I'm afraid you'll still have to depend upon Joseph for your venison.
Where did you hunt?
Why, simply in the forest. Nowhere in particular.
You're not telling me the truth, are you?
My dear, I don't know what you're thinking, but I assure you...
Oh, never mind. I suppose it is best I don't know. But take care of him, please.
Of course I will.
If anything should happen to him.
But what could happen?
You know. You understand these things.
That night I was the bait. And I confess, walking there on the moonlit path, the dense undergrowth pressing close on both sides, the forest all around me, that I felt a strange terror. But nothing happened. Once a bear ambled across the path, paused, sniffed, and disappeared into the brush. Then a little later I thought I saw a flicker of white in the clearing below, but it never reappeared, and I decided it must have been a ripple of grass in the moonlight. At midnight, we returned to the village, and I was beginning to wonder if our trap would ever be sprung.
We must keep on, Sharaviev. I have a feeling that tomorrow night, perhaps, or the next night...
I'm game as long as you are, but so far we've only lost sleep.
I've got to keep on. Have you forgotten about Kira? The things they're saying about her?
No, of course not, but surely these people would not do anything to her.
It's not that. It's what it might do to her spirit if she were to hear those insane rumors. She's so sensitive. I don't like to think about it.
Then, shall we go out again tomorrow night?
Yes. You must come to dinner, though, first. Weiss is bringing down more venison. Kira will want you to come.
All right. Till tomorrow night, then. After dinner, we went out for our third night on the rock. Vaughn was the bait tonight, and I the watcher. The forest was alive with sound. A deer coughed. The bear came ambling back as woolly and harmless as a dog. I was watching him when suddenly he paused and sniffed the air, then disappeared into the trees. The animal sounds quieted one by one, and a tense stillness fell over the forest. My hand tightened on the gun, and suddenly I saw it. That flicker of white moving fast through the trees. It was coming up the path toward Vaughn, a soft, bulky white blur, coming surprisingly fast. Vaughn's back was turned. He did not see it. My finger tightened on the trigger. It was only a few yards away when he turned.
Shira!
I started to press the trigger.
No, Shira, no!
Richard.
Shira, what are you doing here?
Oh, darling, I was looking for you. I looked last night, too. Oh, Richard.
Shira, you shouldn't have. It was foolish, terribly foolish.
Richard, there was something after me. I know it. That's why I was running.
Shira, you shouldn't be out here alone.
Well, what about you? Where's Chiraviev?
He's up there on the rock, covering me with his rifle. I'm perfectly safe. I'll show you. I'll hold out my handkerchief like this. Now, Chiraviev, put a hole in that.
I stared for a moment at the white square of handkerchief, then at the white of her coat. My lips were dry. My finger felt numb on the trigger.
Come on, Chiraviev, the handkerchief.
Please, God, don't let me miss.
There, you see, my dear? I'm perfectly safe.
They went down the path together, and I followed after a moment. 100 yards from the timber slide, I knew I was being followed. Even before I heard something in the brush behind me, I stopped and turned around. It moved past me, cutting off my retreat. Now I stood alone in terror, but it was still in the brush. If only I could make the timber slide. I got down safely. I went straight to Vaughn. He came out of the house to talk to me. I told him what had happened. His reaction surprised me.
Chiraviev, I'm sorry I had to leave you up there to face it alone, but I had to bring her down.
Of course, I know that.
And you must believe this. She never left me. We came down together, arm in arm. We came straight down. You must believe that.
But of course, why should I think differently?
Then you must realize, whoever it was up there in the brush following you, it couldn't have been Kira.
Good heavens, Vaughn. Do you think I believe that preposterous story?
Well, didn't you? Even up there on the rock, when you hesitated about firing at the handkerchief, didn't you believe it might be Kira?
No. Why, no, of course not. But I did. Vaughn knew my thoughts almost better than I knew them myself. Yes, that was why my lips were dry and my finger numb when I pressed the trigger. I had refused to admit it even to myself. And now was I sure, even now. That night, Vaughn was excited.
We're going to get it tonight. After last night, it'll be there waiting for us.
Yes, I think you are right. But if you are, we wouldn't want anyone else to come walking in on us. It might cause confusion.
Don't worry. Kira has promised to stay at home. She says we're doing our duty and she won't interfere. Do you think this is our duty?
No.
Neither do I. I never feel that anything I enjoy can be my duty. And now, I really enjoy this. Tonight, I'd like to be the bait.
No, it's my turn. I won't give it up. Besides, if it's the revenge you want, you have the gun.
That's so. All right, then. Tonight, you'll be the bait.
That night, for the first time, I regretted ever getting into this mess. As I paced up and down the path, my nervousness grew. Tonight, it would surely come. I felt it. But would Vaughn shoot straight and quick enough? The hours went by. Clouds kept scudding over the moon, leaving me in deep darkness for minutes at a time. I was really beginning to be frightened. Then, a fraction of a second before it happened, I knew it was coming. There was a hot breath on my neck, a crushing weight on my shoulder, something hard against my skull, and the crack of Vaughn's rifle. Vaughn!
Chiraviev, are you all right?
Yes, I think so. What was it?
A man. I winged him. Come on. I'm going in after him.
All right, I'm coming. Vaughn, where did he go?
I can hardly believe it. But he went right into this hot spring under the rock.
But there's hardly opening enough for a rabbit.
He went under the water. Come on.
Wait, Vaughn, I'm coming with you. We plunged into the spring, wriggling our way forward, not knowing what to expect. Vaughn held the rifle high above the water, but there wasn't room enough for our heads. We had to hold our breath
and plunge forward. Luckily, it was only a few feet.
I emerged and took a breath. Then I heard Vaughn fire.
I've got him.
Where? Shine the flashlight.
There, at the other side of the cave.
Yes. Who would have thought there would be a cave here?
Not that anyone could have gotten through that spring.
It was a perfect hiding place.
Yes, but it does him no good now. Turn him over. Let's see who our werewolf is.
Where? What? It's Weiss. Joseph Weiss, the game warden's son.
Well, why didn't we think of that? We all knew he was not quite sane.
More than that, he almost told us. Remember, he said, I do not believe a man can turn himself into a wolf. But I know why he'd want to.
Yes. And he described the feeling to walk wild and crouch at the knees.
He knew that feeling. He knew it too well. Beside Joseph Weiss, we found a murder weapon. It was a patented animal killer, a heavy iron muzzle that gripped the scalp, a heavy spike that was released by a spring. His hiding place was even more perfect than we had supposed. When the magistrate investigated, he found a passage from that cave which led underground for more than a mile, and finally to the game warden's house where a ladder led into his cellar.
Undoubtedly, Weiss found that dry underground river one day and realized he could use it. Perhaps that is what caused his mind to snap.
Yes, it released a long pent-up spring in him, like that weapon he used. He saw that he could run in the woods like an animal, disappearing and reappearing with perfect safety. It even offered a place to bury his victims without a trace.
And so your theory proved correct. But there's a murderous, primitive instinct lurking in some people.
Yes.
Well, it's all explained excepting what he did with the bodies.
It would serve no useful purpose to speculate on that now.
Yes, I suppose you're right. Kira, you haven't said anything.
Why did you have to shoot him?
Kira, he was a murderer. He tried to murder Shiravyev.
Is it murder when a wolf kills? A dumb animal? Frightened of intruders?
Kira!
You understand what I mean, don't you, Shiravyev? You understood that night when you shot the handkerchief. Just as I have. It might have happened to any of us, you see.
Kira, what do you mean?
Take me away from here, Richard. Just take me away quickly.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you Taboo by Jeffrey Household, adapted for radio by John Dunkel with Paul Frees as Shiravyev, Marta Mitrovich as Kira, and Morgan Farley as Vaughn. The special musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Fure. Next week...
You were standing on a bridge over Owl Creek with a noose around your neck. You have only a few seconds left to live. A few seconds left to plan your escape.
Next week, we escape with Ambrose Bierce's famous story, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Good night, then, until the same time next week when we again offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You are standing on a bridge over Owl Creek, a noose around your neck. You have but a few seconds left to live, a few seconds left to plan your escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight, we escape to the war between the states and a muddy stream in Alabama, as we recall one of the great short stories in American literature, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, by Ambrose Bierce.
A man stood upon a railroad bridge in northern Alabama, looking down through the ties at the swift water 20 feet below. The man's hands were behind his back, the wrist bound with a cord. A rope closely encircled his neck. It was attached to a stout cross timber above his head, and the slack fell to the level of his knees. He watched a piece of dancing driftwood racing down the current beneath his feet. He thought,
if I could just free my hands, I might throw off this noose and dive into the creek. If I swam underwater, I'd be safe from their bullets.
If my wind held out, I could make the southern bank, take to the woods, and get away home.
Peyton Farquhar, Alabama planter, stood at the end of a plank. A captain of the Union Army and a sergeant stood at the other end. When they stepped aside, the plank would tip upward, and Peyton Farquhar, Confederate spy, would slip between the ties to hang above the muddy water of Owl Creek until dead. Even in this far outpost of Sherman's march to the sea, the formalities of death are observed by these men who are most familiar with him. The captain's company is drawn stiffly at attention along the tracks on the northern side of the bridge. The lieutenant stands erect on the bank of the stream, the point of his bared saber scraping the gravel on the roadbed. Peyton Farquhar is being ushered into the Confederate beyond with every Union amenity. The captain stands aside. Now only the weight of the bulky sergeant counterbalances Peyton Farquhar at the end of his thin board.
They say that this is the moment when all the past events of your life tumble into your memory. But how could anyone know? Who has come back from the dead to tell what dying is like? I don't recall any childhood memories now. The past does not engulf me in this naked moment. I'm only aware of what's here, now. Those Yankees lined up on the bank. His captain's tired eyes. That turkey buzzard circling up there, waiting for me. And that noise. That beating, driving sound like a distant engine. A pump. The roll of thunder on a summer evening. Coming closer. Getting louder. Choking me.
It's your heart, of course, that you hear, stepping up its cadence, pounding under the forced draft of fear. Now you see nothing, remember nothing, sense nothing, but the strangling, suffocating beat of your own heart, throbbing its final protest. You stand there, erect.
The work is nearly at an end now. The captain draws his sword, flourishes it to a carry, sings out a command. The men on the bank smartly spread their legs, thrust hands forward over the rifle barrels. The sergeant on the end of the plank takes one step to the left. The plank tips forward. And Peyton Farquhar drops between the timbers of Owl Creek Bridge.
It takes longer to tell it. As you drop downward, you lose consciousness. You are as one already dead. Then you awaken sharply in pain to feel, not to think, just to feel. The cutting pressure on your throat, the agonies of pulsating fire shooting from your neck downward. To feel the fullness, the congestion, the head bursting with suffocation. Distantly, beyond, outside of yourself, you hear a splash. Remotely you sense cool, wet, green darkness. The rope has broken. You have fallen into the stream. Now thinking returns slowly. You know for the moment you are safe from drowning because the rope around your neck tightly keeps the water from your lungs.
Then I shall die hanging at the bottom of a river. And that's absurd. If I can get my hands free. I must get my hands free. Come, Peyton. They can't lick you. Try again. Once more. Good boy, the rope's given. Again. Try once more. That does it, my boy. Now, the rope around your neck. You must breathe when you come to the surface. You must breathe quickly. For if they haven't hanged you and they fail to drown you, you can't let them shoot you. Loosen that rope around your neck. You must get it loose. Now.
It takes so much longer to tell. You are now in the fullest possession of your senses, and again time stops. You feel the ripples of the water upon your face, and hear their separate sounds as they strike. You see the trees on the bank, and the leaves, and the veining of each leaf, and the very insects on them. The locusts, the brilliant-bodied flies, the gray spiders stretching their webs from twig to twig, the prismatic colors of the dewdrops upon a million blades of grass. You hear the humming of the gnats, the beating of the dragonfly's wings, the strokes of the water spider's legs. A fish slides beneath your eyes, and you hear the rush of its body parting the water. All this you see and hear in an incalculably infinite instant of time. Then you hear something else. You dive deeply, but above the ringing in your ears, you hear the volley of the rifles. And as you rise toward the surface, you meet shining bits of metal, singularly flattened, the distorted and spent bullets, oscillating slowly downward past you. One catches in your collar, and it feels uncomfortably warm. You snatch it out, and this gray piece of Yankee lead reminds you of the gray uniform of the soldier who was responsible for you being here. You recall that it was only night before last when the soldier had ridden up the driveway as you and your wife sat under the magnolia trees in the cool twilight.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Corporal.
Wonder if I might trouble you for a glass of water, sir.
Why, of course,
Don't disturb yourself, Peyton. I'll go fetch it.
You're most kind, ma'am. If you'll just indicate the well...
Nonsense. You just sit a spell with my husband. You look as if you could do with some rest.
Yes, ma'am. Reckon I could.
I'll be back in a jiffy.
Thank you, ma'am.
Whose command are you with, Corporal?
Colonel Tolliver, sir. 13th, North Carolina.
We get so little news down here. How are things going at the front?
Not good, sir. The Yankees are getting ready for another advance. They're repairing the railroad. Got it in shape almost to Owl Creek Bridge. And they got an outpost there. Once they can run the trains beyond the bridge, there's nothing to stop them between here and Atlanta.
Then why hasn't the bridge been destroyed?
The military couldn't get near it. A civilian might.
Owl Creek Bridge. That's not far from here, is it?
Less than 20 miles.
You say they have an outpost there. On which side?
The other side. Nothing on this side but a couple of pickets, half-mile out on the railroad. And a single sentinel at this end of the bridge.
And that bridge is important?
Sure is.
What if it were destroyed?
Hold up the Yankees for several weeks.
Suppose a man, a civilian like myself, should elude the picket post and get the better of the sentinel. What could he accomplish?
Well, I was there a week ago, just before we had to pull out. There's a heap of driftwood come down in last winter's flood and caught on the trestle at this end. Looked mighty dry and tendery to me.
I see.
A fellow with enough gumption might get through and set fire to it. It ought to burn like tow.
Yes, it should.
Of course, a fellow'd have to have plenty of gumption. The Union commanders promised to hang any civilian caught fooling around the railroad.
Here's your water, Corporal. Right out of the spring house.
Thank you kindly, ma'am. My, that's cool and nice.
And here's a smidgen of cornbread. I thought you might be hungry.
I'm mighty grateful, ma'am. It's ladies like you that keeps the South together and fighting these days.
My, what a nice compliment.
It certainly is.
Well, reckon I better hit the leather. I got a lot of riding ahead of me tonight.
Good luck to you, Corporal, and thank you for the information.
You'd be taking a chance, sir, but you couldn't do a greater service for your country.
I'll remember that, Corporal.
Goodbye, ma'am.
Goodbye, Corporal.
Goodbye, sir. Many thanks.
Goodbye.
Peyton, what was he talking about?
What, my dear?
The corporal. What did he mean by service to your country and taking a chance?
Oh, nothing.
Peyton, tell me.
It was nothing, really, my dear.
Peyton Farquhar, if you're fixing to take any chances for our country, I want to know about it. Now, you just speak your piece.
There's nothing to say except I'll be going away for a day or two on a little trip.
Is it dangerous, Peyton?
Not very.
You'll be back.
Yes, my dear. I promise you, I'll be back.
You break the surface of Owl Creek for a second time. And now you're much further downstream, further away from the Union soldiers on the bridge reloading their guns, the ramrods flashing in the morning sun.
That captain will make the same mistake again. He'll order them to fire at will. Heaven help me, I cannot dodge him.
Another more terrible sound, cannon. They've trained a cannon on you.
And close. Next time they'll use a charge of grape. Rifles and grape covering the water from bank to bank. I'm done for, Ann.
Then something seemed to grab you, and you're whirled round and round, spinning like a waterlogged top. You're caught in a vortex, a whirlpool. The water, the banks, the distant bridge, the soldiers become indistinct blurs. And again you're helpless. You feel dizzy and sick to your stomach. Just as you felt last night, when you crept up the bank toward the lone sentinel on the south end of the bridge and discovered that the sentinel was not alone.
There he is, boys. Grab him.
Got him, Sergeant.
Ah, well, Mr. Peyton Farquhar, we've been expecting you.
How did you know my name?
We got ways.
But look here, I'm a civilian.
Save your breath and thank your maker we didn't shoot you in the back. Well, we don't do things that way up north. You'll get a trial. Everything fair and square. Bring him along, men.
The whirlpool spins faster and faster. A sharp piece of driftwood tears at your coat. The churning brown water chokes you. You know there is nothing you can do. As you had known it last night, when they shoved you into a tent near the bridge to face the infantry captain with the tired eyes.
There he is, sir. Right on schedule.
Good work, Sergeant. Is this the man, Lieutenant?
That's him. What? You're the corporal who stopped at my plantation last night.
That's right, Mr. Farquhar. But I'm not with the 13th North Carolina Volunteers.
Mr. Farquhar, this is Lieutenant Saltonstall, Intelligence Officer, 5th Massachusetts Regulars.
You've trapped me. You deliberately led me into a trap. I'm a civilian in a plant.
Yes, and also a Southern patriot, caught in the act of espionage.
You can't prove it.
We don't have to.
This is the most despicable, This proves once more that honor is a stranger in the North.
I'm too tired to listen to a recital of the code of a Southern gentleman, Mr. Farquhar. I'm afraid the distinction between your ethics and my lack of them would escape me this evening.
But why have you done this? Why have you deliberately trapped me?
The best way to eliminate civilian resistance is to lure it into the open. You fell for the bait. Too bad.
Now, look here. It's my constitutional right.
Which Constitution? The Constitution of the United States or Jeff Davis's?
You insulting Yankee.
Remember your manners, sir.
I demand a trial.
You've just had it. Post a guard over him, Sergeant.
Yes.
We'll hang him in the morning.
Something tears at your face, scratching. And you realize that the whirling has stopped. You open your eyes. You're lying on the southern bank of the stream, out of sight of your enemies. Safe. The gravel which has scratched your cheek now seems soft as new-picked cotton. The forest around you is a garden of luscious beauty, reeking with a heavy perfume of freedom. Even the whiz and rattle of the final charge of grapes screaming through the treetops seems a benediction from the baffled cannoneer. You leap to your feet and run into the woods, south, towards home. Your neck is swollen and throbbing with pain. You carry it cocked toward your left shoulder as you push through the matted brush. All morning you tear your way through the undergrowth. Your jacket is tattered and your face crisscrossed with bloody scratches from the brambles. Every few moments you stop. You stop to listen for the sound of dogs. But all you hear is the sleepy buzz of the forest. And the blood throbbing through your heated brain brings another thought, which is an insult. No dogs. You are not even important enough to the Yankees for dogs. It's nearly noon now, and for half an hour you've been plunging through a swamp, waist-deep in green ooze. Your neck hurts constantly. Your head throbs and your tongue is thick. It tastes like brown cotton. Gnats swarm before your eyes, catching in your eyelids. Mosquitoes buzz in your ears, drill deep in your hands and swollen neck. You cannot go any longer. You slow down. You stop. You reach toward a palmetto root for support, and it slithers from your grasp and slides softly into the water. Water moccasin. Fear finds you at last. Terror, which stood aloof when you fled the executioner's bullets, now embraces you with clammy unction. A water moccasin. The deadly cottonmouth. Now each branch and root seems to writhe under your glance. The swamp is undulating with certain death. You plunge on through the dark, stinking ooze, on and on, tripping, stumbling, never stopping, for terror rides your back, flogging you with a whiplash of fear.
Master Peyton fills a fiddle and jig time. You just drink this here yop tea, Master Peyton.
Thank you. Thank you. Jethro.
Yes, sir, Master Peyton.
What are you doing here?
I live here.
You live... Where am I? What happened?
I was paddling my dugout home through the swamp with a mess of catfish. I sees you lying out there on the bank in front of my cabin.
Jethro, I heard... I thought you were dead.
Of course you thought Jethro was dead. You knew he had consumption when you sold him. You knew he couldn't last long and he wasn't earning his keep. His wife and his daughter had carried on some at first, but after a while they calmed down. And last you'd heard, Jethro was dead.
You thought I was dead, Master Peyton? Why, sir, don't you know what's happened to me? I'm free. I'm free at last.
So, news travels fast. Even in the middle of this backwoods swamp, this lonely black has heard of Abe Lincoln's traitorous Emancipation Proclamation. And they believe it with the faith of children.
Yes, sir, I'm free. I expect pretty soon my woman, my little gal, come along and join me.
Yes, of course they will, Jethro.
How is they, Master Peyton? Is they well?
Yes, indeed, they're both fine. Your daughter's growing into a young beauty. Miss Farquhar's brought her into the kitchen, beginning to train her for the house.
Well, what do you think of that? And my woman, she still sings pretty?
Yes, Jethro. Sundays at meeting time, we can hear her all the way up to the big house.
That woman's voice is prettier than all the angels.
Jethro, I don't know how to say this, but I really was sorry about having to sell you. But there wasn't anything else.
I understand, Master Peyton. Don't pay it no mind. I done forgive you long ago.
You have?
Sure. Don't the Lord tell us to forgive those who trespass against us? Don't the Lord promise us we shall be free? Don't you worry none about Master Peyton. Here now, quiet that spot. Quiet, Trigger, quiet you. Must have heard Razorback in the brush. No, sirree. Look, Master Peyton. There's a horse coming down the road.
A horse?
Look there. Soldier. One of our soldiers, Corporal, look like.
Jethro, you got to hide me.
Why's I got to hide you, Master Peyton?
Don't ask so many questions, you insolent...
Master Peyton, you forget, I'm free now.
Well, then, as an old friend of mine, please don't ask any questions. Just hide me. Don't tell that soldier anything.
Well, sure. I reckon I can do that for an old friend, Master Peyton. Here. You get down on this here bed. That's it. Put the covers over the side. There you are. Snug as a tick in a rabbit's ear.
Remember, don't tell him anything.
Have you come this far just to be turned in by a wool-gathering black who talks crazy? If Jethro knew this gray-clad corporal was really a Union lieutenant, he'd guarantee his freedom by turning you in. Even so, he bears you a big enough grudge to turn you in anyway. Unless, of course, he's planning to dispose of you himself. Yes, that's it. That's why he talks so silly about the Lord and forgiveness. He's going to do you in himself.
Well, if you run into him, don't tell him I was looking for him.
Yes, sir. I'll remember not telling.
Just keep minding your own business, Uncle. You live longer. Get up there.
Yes, sir. I sure will. You can come out now, Master Peyton. I declare, I don't understand none of this. You says not tell him you're here. He says not tell you he's been here. What's this all about, Master Peyton?
Oh, it's nothing, Jethro. Nothing. I owe the man some money. I'm not ready to pay it yet.
Oh, I see. I wouldn't know about that. Money's something never bothered me like it bothers some. Money and me's always been strangers.
What's he mean by that? Money's never bothered me like it's bothered some. What's he picking up that knife for?
Jethro, what are you going to do with that knife?
Oh, I was just fixing to slit up some of them catfish you got in the dugout. Look like you could do with a little food, Miles Peyton.
Oh, no, thank you, Jethro. I really got to be on my way. I want to get home by sundown if I can.
Sure wouldn't be no bother to cut up a couple calves.
No, thank you, old friend. If you'll just tell me which way I should go to get home.
Huh? Well, I don't rightly know, Miles Peyton. I reckon from the way the sun's reclining, be down the road that way. Quite a tolerable piece.
Yeah, that should be about right.
I never been back, you know. I never tried to go back since I've been free.
Yes, I know.
But I reckon it won't be long till my woman, my little gal, comes here to me.
Of course.
If you get back, Master Peyton, if and you see him, you tell him I'm here waiting for him, you hear?
Yeah, I'll do that, Jethro. I'll do that.
You get away from there fast, the shells of the road crunching under your muddy boots. That grinning savage standing in the doorway of the shack, the knife in his hands. And each moment until the road bends and cuts off the cabin from view, you fear he'll come after you, the knife poised to plunge in your back, to pay you for the thrust you gave him when you sent him away to die. But he's still standing, grinning foolishly and waving as you turn the bend. Now you feel safe, but only for a moment. Then you hear a sound. The sound of a horse. It must be the corporal in gray from the 5th Massachusetts Regulars. He's coming back down the road, searching for you, hounding you, coming to take you back to Owl Creek Bridge, back to a rope that won't break under your weight. You walk faster and faster, and always the sound is there, growing louder and louder. And you run as fast as you can down the shell road, which stretches clear to the horizon between the green walls of scrubby pines. How long have you been running down this endless road? It's dark now. Is it night? Or has the blood trapped in your head by the suffocating rope at last burst into your congested eyeballs and blinded you? Will it next pour from your swollen and bruised neck into your brain, stopping all sensation, instantly bringing to a welcome end this day of agony and flight? Ridiculous fantasies of fatigue and fear. You can see the darkness is the black of a sudden summer storm. That lightning flash clearly shows the white road ahead and the black silhouettes of trees along the sides. And since you're sure that you can see, the other senses return. You hear the rumble of the thunder. You feel the insupportable ache of your straining lungs, the leaden weight of your tired feet. And now the patter of rain, first washing the stinging sweat from your scratched and bitten face, now pounding harder, flowing down across your hatless head, matting your hair, slowing your headlong gait to a dog trot. Another flash of lightning directly overhead. For an instant, you see the soldiers of Owl Creek Bridge standing at the side of the road, rifles leveled, their eyes boring down the sights, aiming at your heart. Again, you're running, and the rain has turned to hail. Pellets as big as hominy beat down on you, pound your swollen, bruised neck, hammer at your countless cuts. Again, the lightning. And on the other side of the road, the gray-clad corporal sits astride his horse waiting for you.
No, you can't get me now. No!
This bolt of lightning strikes a tree ahead of you, and in the white blinding light stands Jethro, black and grinning, knife raised in the air.
No, Jethro! Forgive me!
He's gone. And now you see dangling from each tree along the road a noose swinging in the wind. Wherever you turn, wherever you look, a noose waiting for you. A noose which wriggles like a water moccasin. You are standing on the green lawn of your plantation before the high-columned entrance. The storm is over. The clouds are black and menacing all around the horizon. But through a break in the sky overhead, glorious sunlight streams down, bathing your garden and your house in heavenly light. You are home. And now you hear a rustle of crinoline, and down from the wide portico steps your beloved wife. She walks across the wide lawn, arms outstretched.
Peyton, my dear, you're back, just as you promised you'd be.
For this moment, you have endured the agonies of this day. And were those agonies multiplied 1,000 times, they would be small price for the benison of this breast, the sanctuary of these arms, the security of these lips. You step forward to fold your wife in your embrace.
The rope stretched tight, sang like a bowstring. Peyton Farquhar was dead. His body, with a broken neck, swung gently from side to side beneath the timbers of Owl Creek Bridge.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce in a radio adaptation written by Mr. Robeson. The part of Peyton Farquhar was played by Harry Bartell. The narrators were Bill Conrad and Bill Johnstone. Jethro was played by Louis Van Rooten. The special musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Feuer. Next week,
you are trapped in the pitch darkness of a ruined mansion, and groping for you, stalking you, is a homicidal maniac armed with a knife, from whom you must escape.
Next week, we escape with Joseph Hergesheimer's gripping story, Wild Oranges. Good night, then, until this same time next week, when we again offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You are trapped in the dank darkness of a ruined plantation house. And somewhere in the pitch-black room is a homicidal maniac armed with a knife, groping for you, trying to prevent your escape.
Escape, produced by William N. Robeson, directed tonight by Richard Sanville, and carefully plotted to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to a deserted sandpit off the coast of Georgia, where terror stalks under the Spanish moss, as Joseph Hergesheimer tells it in Wild Oranges. What could have appeared more innocent of danger than that barren, low-lying shore of southern Georgia? What could have seemed less laden with terror than that lovely little cove, so tranquil and well-sheltered, so warmly bathed in late afternoon sun as we dropped the anchor of our ketch and prepared our mooring? And yet there was something. First it was an odor of a grove of wild orange trees in late bloom, growing defiantly amid the tangled undergrowth of the shore. The scent was strong and exotic and heady, and as I smelled it, I felt a vague uneasiness. Then as I watched the shore and Halvard, sole member of my crew, furled the sails, the mirror of the cove was shattered by a movement. First I thought it was a fish leaping and playing in the water. Came round a spit of land from an inner bay, and then Halvard was beside me. That's queer, sir.
Huh?
I would have bet there was nobody within miles of here. But there's someone swimming.
Huh? Yes. It's a girl.
Aye. She'll be surprised when she discovers us, no doubt.
And embarrassed. Oh, she swims well, doesn't she? As if she's been born in the water.
Ah, yeah, does she seen us?
Yes. Now she's running away. That sprint would win an Olympic race. Wonder what she's doing here, where she comes from.
Perhaps there.
Where?
Through the trees. There's a house. You can hardly see it. I spotted it a moment ago.
Oh, yes, so there is. Oh, but it's a ruin. It's rotting away. No one could have lived in that since the Civil War.
Well, there may be others back there.
Yes, but this coast is deserted. Marked as swamp on the chart.
Well, I don't know, sir.
It's strange. Very strange. Yes, it was strange. And stranger still was this vague uneasiness I felt. As twilight fell, the aroma of the wild oranges was overpowering. Suddenly, without knowing why, I slipped on a jacket, went to the side and dropped into the tender.
Halvard stood by to cast off. He asked no questions, and I said nothing. What could I say? I didn't know myself why I was going. I pulled the tender up on the soft sand of the beach and walked up a dim path through the orange grove. The scent of the blossoms was full of such wild sweetness that I picked an orange and tasted it. It was bitter, but of a pungence that was new and rare and strangely delicious. The dim moonlight only accentuated the ruin of the house. There were other smaller, ramshackle buildings scattered about, overgrown with weeds and creeping vines. This had once been a great plantation. Now it lay still and lifeless. Then I saw the light. Round the side were a smaller portico held off the weeds. A single doorway was framed in the pale light of an inner lamp. As I approached, I saw a shadow move across it, so swiftly, so furtively, that it was gone before I realized it had been a man. Then I saw her, sitting on the portico, rocking softly in her chair.
What do you want?
Nothing. When I came ashore, I thought no one was living here.
You're from the white boat that sailed in at sunset?
Yes, and I'm returning immediately.
It was like magic. Suddenly, without a sound, you were anchored in the bay.
I've robbed you, too. Some of your oranges are in my pocket.
You won't like them. They've run wild. We can't sell them.
They have a distinct flavor of their own. I should be glad to have some on my boat.
All you want.
My man will get them and pay you.
Please, don't. Oh, Nicholas attends to that. Won't you sit down? My father was here when you came up, but he went in. Strangers trouble him.
Well, I should be getting back. I'm sorry to have disturbed you and your father.
No, it was nothing.
Good night, then.
Good night.
That was all. Fragment of commonplace conversation, but it was enough. Now the uneasiness I felt, the strangeness of this place took shape for me. I saw it in her lovely, fragile face. I heard it in her voice. There'd been a hidden terror, a terrible, controlled fright that approached hysteria. There'd been a warning in it, and something else, a plea. By the time I got back to the boat, I was completely unnerved, and Halvard made matters worse.
You find anything, sir?
There are people living there.
Well, there'll be water in. Maybe we could stay here a couple of days, huh?
What do you mean?
Well, this is good anchorage, sir. I'd like to unship the propeller, and the topside could do with a coat of varnish.
No, we're going on south.
Aye, sir.
No, wait, Halvard. Of course, you're right. We need a couple of days' work before we head into blue water. We'll do it here. And so we stayed. In the light of morning, the strange dread I felt seemed foolish, and especially when I went ashore and found the girl looking young and fresh and fragile, fishing off the little pier in the inner bay. She had a pathetic little rod and line, so I got our tackle from the boat and landed a big rockfish for her, enough for several dinners. We were carrying the fish to the house when we came on a pale, thin ghost of a man sitting on the portico. He started a swift retreat, but too late.
Father, wait. This is my father, Litchfield Stoop.
How do you do, sir?
Lily, you all know I can't. Strangers,
Father, you must manage yourself better. You know I wouldn't bring anyone to the house who would hurt us. And see, we are fetching you a splendid rockfish.
Oh, yes. So you are. We are all alone here, sir. The man is away, my daughter and I. The fish, yes, acceptable.
If you will carry it in for me. Nicholas would do it, but he's away. And the father isn't strong. This way. We have no ice. I must put it in water. In here, right there. Thank you. You've been very nice. Now I suppose you'll go on across the world.
Not tonight. We're staying here, making repairs.
Where do you come from? And where are you going?
From Cape Cod. I'm going to the Guianas.
Isn't that South America? I've traveled far. On maps. I was born here in this house, and I've never been 50 miles away.
Oh, that's incredible. But you seem like a girl who's been everywhere in the world and had the best education, everything.
My father has many books in there, that's all.
Your eyes are remarkable. Gray-green, like olive leaves, and magnetic. I came ashore to ask you if you had a large water supply and if I might fill my casks.
Of course. Rainwater, the cistern's full.
I'll send my man Halvard, then.
Yes.
There's something else in your eyes, in your voice. What is it? Fear?
Fear? Why, no, of course not. What should I be afraid of?
I don't know. But I saw it in your father's face, too.
It's only your imagination.
Yes, no doubt. Goodbye, then. Thank you for the fishing. Strange how this girl should upset me so. I tried to resist, but that evening I found myself going back to her. Tying the tender to the little pier, I watched as she came to meet me.
I'm glad you came. The fish waited.
Oh, don't tell me. I'd rather not know. I might be tempted to mention it in the future, and I'm sure it would sound like a fish story.
But it was imposing. Nicholas waited. He's our man. He's back. Let's stay here, by the sea. It's so lovely in the moonlight.
All right. Oh, it is nice here.
I lied to you today about fear. I suppose I am afraid. I suppose my father has passed some of his fear on to me.
Why is he afraid?
Well, that's a long story going back to the First War.
Please tell me.
Well, he was a young man then, and he didn't go to war. It wasn't that he was a coward exactly. He just couldn't adjust to it mentally. People mocked him, laughed at him, and threatened him. That's when a sort of perpetual fear started. He ran away. He met my mother and married her. They came here. None of us has ever left this lonely place. Never will, perhaps.
Your mother?
She's dead. Loneliness killed her. Perhaps it's no wonder that I sound timid or afraid. Perhaps I am.
Aren't you lonely, too?
I don't know anything else. But what about you? Who are you that you go sailing about the world with only your sailor for company?
Oh, I'm nobody. My name is John Woolfolk.
And you do nothing but sail about the world?
Nothing.
Why?
Well, let's say I don't like modern society. Let's say I don't like entanglements.
I see.
Oh, I didn't mean...
You needn't apologize. I envy you your freedom. I sit here a great deal and watch the ships far out there on their water roads. You are enviable. Sailing where you like. Safe and free. Safe and free.
There is something more than you've told me. More behind this fear in your voice.
No.
But perhaps I can help.
No, please.
What's that?
It's Nicholas. Blowing on the car. I've got to go in.
I'll come with you.
No, please. No, don't come. You'll be going soon.
Tomorrow, perhaps.
Then, goodbye. Goodbye.
Now I knew the terror I'd only sensed was real. This girl was possessed by fear. This house held some terrible secret. What could it be? Next morning, Halvard suggested we repaint the engines, and I agreed. We'd stay another day or two. Later, Halvard went in to fill a cask of water. He came back without the cask and livid with rage.
There was an idiot in that house. Next time I'll take the pistol.
What do you mean? Where's the cask?
It was broken.
How?
It was filling it at the cistern, and this idiot, a huge hulking brute, came out of the house. He told me to get away. Well, I tried to explain that we had permission, but he came at me with a knife, gibbering. Well, I hit him, but it was like hitting an ox. He put his foot on the cask and crushed it.
I'll see about this.
You be careful, sir. The man's not right. He's dangerous. Plenty dangerous.
I went ashore and around to the back door of the house. Millie wasn't in sight, and when I knocked, a lumbering giant with pig-like eyes came to the door.
What do you want?
I take it you're Nicholas, the man who broke my water cask.
It was full of our water.
I'm not going to argue with you. I came ashore to instruct you to keep your hands off my property and my sailor.
Oh, let our water be.
I told you I wouldn't discuss the matter. I don't have to justify myself to you. Just remember, keep your hands
don't
off.
Get me started.
What do you mean started?
Here, don't get me started. Mind, I warned you. Don't put
down that knife.
Go away now. Don't get me started.
Stand
Go
back.
away. Don't get me started. I'm telling you.
Nicholas, stop. What is this? What's the matter?
Nothing. Nicholas and I have had a little misunderstanding, that's all. It's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about, I said. But when I got back to the boat, I couldn't help asking myself why I'd left her with that brute. I just about made up my mind to go ashore again to check up when I saw her waving on the beach. She wanted to visit the boat. I went and got her. There was no hint of terror in her face now, just shining, girlish wonderment at the polished metal and the gleaming wood of the ketch. I offered to take her for a sail, and her face lighted up like a child's. But when we reached the heavy swells outside the reef, her face got white, and she froze.
It's so big.
Are you frightened? I'll turn back.
I'd rather you didn't. I must learn. I'm not a child.
No, we're going back. Before we got to the anchorage, her panic was almost out of control. But safely moored once more, she calmed slowly and said,
How strange. To be forced back to this place I loathe by my own cowardice.
It's not cowardice. The sea is frightening to those unused to it. Come, you must forget it now. How about we'll have tea for us in a moment? How do you like our boat?
It's quite wonderful. Have you nothing else to care for? No place or people on land?
None.
And you're satisfied?
Hardly. All the things most men value were taken from me in an instant.
Can you talk about it?
Why, I haven't for 12 years. Not to anybody, but... Now? Yes, I think I can. You see, we were just married. Only a few days. We were very, very happy. Then, in one instant, she was dead. It was a silly, stupid accident thrown from a horse, without rhyme or reason.
So you left everything, taking your revenge on the world.
You could put it that way, I suppose. I simply don't want to take a second chance to become involved and be hurt.
But that's living. To be hurt. Do you think you can escape so easily?
I don't know.
Oh, I must go. Father will be waiting.
Why so suddenly? There's... Oh, yes, I see. That's Nicholas on the beach looking out here, isn't it?
Yes. Dinner will be ready.
Why do you have a servant like that? That man's dangerous.
You mustn't say that. Please don't. Just take me in, please.
Now I knew that she, too, was afraid of Nicholas. I could see it in her eyes. Why, then, did I let her go to him? I don't know. I was confused, I guess. That night a storm broke, a raging wind and rain, and to match my tortured mood. I hardly slept. Her face was always before my eyes, and by morning I knew that I must do something. I rode the tender in through a drizzling rain. I went up through the orange grove and stopped in the bushes by the house. Someone was coming out of the house, and I crouched down out of sight. It was Millie. I rose and called to her. Millie!
Oh, it's you. I was just coming out to look. I was afraid you'd gone out. The sea is like a pack of wolves.
I won't go alone, not without you.
What are you saying? That's madness.
No, I've got to talk to you, Millie. There's a lot that needs explaining. Things that I have a right to know.
No, not here. Come.
She led me into one of the smaller ruined buildings. What must have been a store in the days of the great plantation. We crouched far back in the dripping shadows of a corner.
Now?
Millie, I love you. For the first time in 12 years, I'm living again, and I love you.
I know nothing of love.
It's easily learned.
Well, perhaps if things were different, someplace else, I might care very much.
Then I'm going to take you away someplace else. Make things different. Give you the chance.
No. It's too late. You came too late.
Why, Millie? Why? What is it? What is it you fear?
Nicholas.
Oh, he's nothing. Nothing to be afraid of. Has he been bothering you?
He says he's crazy about me. He says I must marry him.
Where is he now?
No, you mustn't, John. Something frightful would happen.
Not frightful, just unfortunate for Nicholas.
You don't understand. He's not human. There's something about him.
What about him?
He came here in April. We were glad to get him. Servants are impossible to get back here in the wilderness. He would work for the smallest wages. Only a few days ago, I found out why he was glad to be here. I was cleaning his room, and I found this.
Let's see. Wanted for murder. Iscon Nicholas, homicidal maniac.
He knows I found it. He knows. And he's been furious. Then you came, and he ran and hid in the pines. But he told me if I spoke about it,
then it would happen to me. And if I left with you, it would happen to Father. You see, he thinks I'm in love with you. He told me to send you away. He said you must leave today.
Millie, I should have realized.
He says I must not be away for longer than an hour. I must go.
Look, Millie, it'll take us a couple of hours to get the boat ready. I'll come for you tonight at 8. Now, tell him you saw me and I promised to go. And act quietly. Say you've been upset. You'll give him his answer tomorrow. Then at 8, bring your father and walk out to the wharf. That's all. But do it without hesitation or preparation.
Oh, don't let him hurt us. Oh, please don't.
Not now. He's finished, Millie. But do as I say. It won't be long, hardly 3 hours. And then, freedom. Now that I knew, now that there was to be action, I felt better. Halvard and I got the ketch ready for sailing, and 8 o'clock we tied it up to the little pier. The storm had abated slightly, but it was still raining. I got up on the dock and waited for Millie. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Something was wrong. I told Halvard to wait there with the tender. Then I walked slowly up to the house. It was dark. I went up to the side portico to the heavy door. A tiny crack of light showed under it. I pushed it open. The light came from a parlor to the right. I looked in. On the floor lay a body. Old Litchfield Stope. He was dead, crushed. His arm twisted grotesquely under him. There was not a sound in the house. Slowly I walked through the downstairs rooms. Nothing. And back in the hall I heard a slight creak. Upstairs someone had moved. Was it Millie, alive? Or Nicholas, lying in wait? I groped slowly up the stairs. I dared not use my flashlight. It would have made me a target for his knife. The upstairs hall was pitch black, and still there was no sound. I inched my way along the wall, slowly. Then I stumbled on a loose board. The pistol flew out of my hand, but the stumble saved my life. The same instant I felt Nicholas lunge. Heard the knife sing past my ear and thud into the wall. Felt his great bulk smashing on my shoulder. My gun was somewhere on the dark floor. His knife was embedded in the wall. Now we were grappling hand to hand, rolling on the floor, kicking, tearing, gouging, crushing. My strength and wit against the massive bulk of a maniacal killer. How many minutes did that unequal struggle last? I don't know. It seemed an hour. Several times, as if by common consent, we rested for minutes at a time, locked in tight embrace. Once we rolled apart and lay panting, the breath aching in my throat. Then I heard him groping along the wall, searching for the knife or the gun. I threw myself on him again, but he was too big, too furious. I felt my strength ebbing away. His fingers were closing over my throat. With one last effort, I tried to throw him off, to roll him off. I staggered dazedly to my feet and looked up. He'd fallen through the banister down the stairwell. Nicholas had landed on the bottom. He lay there on the stairs, sprawled, his head at a grotesque angle. But he was not dead, only stunned. I leaned against the wall, looked at him stupidly. There was something I was trying to remember. What was it? Then she came down the steps and I remembered. Millie.
I had to walk right past him. There was no other way. Right past his head and my skirt. I think we better go away. It's quite impossible here with him in the hall where you have to pass so close.
Millie, yes, we'll leave at once.
I must tell you about my father. You know, in Virginia, the women tied an apron on the door because he would not go to war, and that preyed on his mind, and he was afraid of the slightest thing.
Yes, I know, but we must go.
Things upset him so. He had no strength.
To hear her talk like this, like a sick child, was almost more than I could bear. But now I heard something. Nicholas had gotten up. He stood there and stared for a moment at us. Then he started slowly up the stairs. He was going for the knife.
This little thing upset him.
Millie, we've got to go.
I was to meet a man. We were going away someplace where it'd be peaceful. He said at 8 o'clock. But Nicholas suspected, you see. He asked why Father had put on his heavy winter clothes. Then when I tried to go out, he pushed me.
Millie.
And do you know what Father did then? He came up and he said, "Don't do that. Take your hands off my daughter." His lips shook a little, but he said it. That's the important thing.
Yes, of course. Your father was a brave man after all. Now come, that man is waiting for you. There's no time to lose.
Father said, "Take your hands off my daughter." Nicholas killed him, of course. Crushed him like a little mosquito.
But it was a brave thing to do.
I couldn't wait any longer. I had to risk whatever injury it might do to her mind. I could hear Nicholas coming back. I swept her up in my arms and carried her out into the night, down the path to the little pier. Behind me, I could hear Nicholas crashing through the brush like a giant animal in pursuit.
Are you all right, sir?
Yes, about done in, but all right. Here, help me get her in the boat.
Yes, sir. There. Yeah. Somebody's coming.
It's Nicholas. He's got a knife.
Good. They wanted to get back at him. You get in, sir. I'll take care of him.
Calvert went to intercept Nicholas on the path. I heard them meet and struggle for a moment. Then a stooped figure came walking slowly onto the pier. I prepared to shove the boat out into the water, and then...
All right, sir. It's me.
Oh, Halbert. Where's Nicholas?
They stopped him. He was all pumped out.
Are you hurt?
No, just a scratch. They missed his knife at first in the dark. It's nothing.
Good. Let's get away from here, then. I held Millie in my arms as Halbert rowed to the catch erratically, I suppose, because of the storm. We were ready to cast off in 2 minutes. The last obstacle would be the narrow passing out of the cove. In this storm, it would be dangerous, very dangerous. I started to take Millie into the cabin.
No! There's Nicholas! In the doorway!
Nonsense. Nicholas is dead. You're on my boat, Millie. You're safe, Millie.
Safe? With John Woolfolk?
I am John Woolfolk.
But you didn't come.
Yes, I did, Millie. And you're safe. Come.
I want to stay here.
All right. You sit here beside Halbert. I'm going up front to take soundings.
In this van, you won't be able to hear me if I call.
No, but you can hear me. Remember, we've only 3 feet clearance. You'll have to hold it steady through the passage.
Oh, I'll manage it.
Halbert, this is no time for pretense. How do you feel?
All right. They've taken knives before. Just a scratch.
All right, we'll fix it as soon as we get outside. Now let's go. Turn over the engines. Pull up anchor. The boat headed into the tearing wind of the storm, sped swiftly toward the narrow inlet. A foot too far on either side, and we would hit. In this sea, that would mean death for us all. I stood far up on the bow, taking soundings, feeling out the passage. Fore! The howling wind carried my call back to Halbert. The boat veered. I realized he must have lost a lot of blood. Halbert! Halbert, steady her! Slowly, haltingly, it came around. 3.5! Steady now! But it was anything but steady. The boat wavered and swung as if an amateur hand were on the wheel. In a moment, we might hit. 3.25! We were in the passage. Hold steady, Halbert! Steady! For just another moment. Just one moment. 3.5! We're through! Good boy, Halbert! Good boy, Halbert, I called. But when I went back, it was not Halbert at the wheel. It was Millie. Millie, her hands steady, her eyes washed clear of any madness. Millie with a tight little smile on her face, but no fear. And Halbert lay rolling with the swells in the bottom of the cockpit.
I'm afraid he's dead, John. He was wounded worse than you thought.
Halbert dead?
He told me to take the wheel. Said it was life or death. Then he slid down like that.
When? When was this?
Back there in the passage. Just when you said 3.5. I'm afraid I wasn't very good. But I held on.
Oh, Millie, you were wonderful.
No, not yet. But I'll learn, John. I'll learn.
Escape is produced by William N. Robson and was directed tonight by Richard Sandville. You have just heard Wild Oranges by Joseph Hergesheimer, adapted for radio by John Dunkel, with Paul Frees as John Woolfolk, Jeanette Nolan as Millie Stopes, Bill Conrad as Halvard, Jack Crucian as Nicholas, and Sherry Hall as Litchfield Stopes. The special musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Fuhrer. Next week.
You've planned it very well. She's dead, and you feel no remorse. Your escape has worked out perfectly. There's nothing to worry about. Except, perhaps, an unexpected Christmas present.
Next week, we escape with John Collier's grim story, Back for Christmas. Good night, then, until this same time next week, when once again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You are trapped in the dark cellar of your home. Beside you is the murdered body of your wife. And above at the front door are your friends looking for you, tracking you down, cutting off your escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to a university town in England and a household where hate holds sway as we listen to John Collier's famous story, Back for Christmas.
Yes, my dear.
What on earth are you doing down here in the cellar?
Why, just a little digging.
And why, may I ask, have you chosen this day of all days to dig up the cellar floor?
Why, I thought as the weather has been so damp, this would be an excellent time to plant my devil's garden.
Devil's garden? Whatever nonsense is that?
Oh, that's my little joke about it. You see, I've managed to secure some of the spores of several unclassified wild orchids. In their natural state, they bloom under damp masses of leaf mold. The Occurence Indians call them devil flowers because they appear to bloom under the ground.
Well, I'm sure the Occurence Indians will be very interested if you succeed in growing these ridiculous flowers under the cellar floor. Whom else it'll interest, I can't imagine. What's that terrible smell?
Why, that's the leaf mold, my dear. Chemically identical with the earth blanket they grow under in the wild state. I really should line the pit with concrete so as to prevent seepage from this foreign soil. But I don't suppose there'll be time for it now.
There certainly will not be time for it. Do you realize that we're sailing for America a week from today, and you've made no arrangements whatever? Unless you call digging a hole in the cellar making arrangements. I certainly don't. Devil's garden, indeed. Sometimes I think you're going soft in the head, Herbert.
Well, I suppose it's inconsiderate of me. But, you see, I've been wanting to try this experiment for a long time. But what with my lectures and seminars at the university, there never seemed to be time.
Well, there certainly isn't any time for it now. I suppose you've forgotten I made an appointment for you at the barber's this afternoon.
Oh, must I shave off my beard, Hermione?
Now, we've been all through that. Of course you must. They don't wear beards in America. Go and get your jacket on and do as I tell you.
Yes, Hermione.
And don't forget to take your umbrella. It looks like rain.
Yes, Hermione.
Oh, don't look so put upon, Herbert. Someone has to plan things in this house, or you'll never even get to the university in time for your lectures, much less make arrangements for a trip to America.
I know, but what of my specimens?
There'll be plenty of time to plant your precious devil's garden when you get home from America. We're not going to be gone forever, you know. We'll be back here for Christmas.
Yes, of course. Back for Christmas. I'd forgotten.
Well, try to remember it. And if you can't do that, just do as I tell you. I've been making the plans in this house for 20 years. And if there's any digging to be done, I'll manage that as well. You understand, Herbert?
Yes, Hermione.
Good. You have just 20 minutes to clean this mess up down here and keep your appointment at the barber's. And when you finish there, I want you to come straight home.
Well, I wanted to stop at Miss Markham's and pick up some books I ordered.
Well, all right. But don't loiter there the whole afternoon, browsing over those old books the way you usually do. Now hurry and clear up this rubbish. Get rid of that smelly stuff. And no more digging, mind you.
Yes, Hermione. Yes, Hermione. How many years have I been saying that? 10 years? 15? 20? Clear up the rubbish. Yes, Hermione. Don't forget your umbrella. Yes, Hermione. Do this, do that. Yes, Hermione. Yes, yes, yes. How much longer can I stand this?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Miss Markham.
Why, it's Professor Carpenter, isn't it?
You didn't recognize me.
Oh, you look ever so much younger without the beard. 20 years at least.
20 years.
Oh, you'll be glad to know those books you ordered have finally arrived.
Books?
Phytotany of phalloid gametophytes and coniferous shrubs of North America. Those are the ones you ordered, aren't they?
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. You're very kind, Miss Markham.
Why kind, Professor Carpenter?
Well, not many young ladies in bookshops would go out of their way to look up rare books for an old professor of botany.
Oh, why, you're not old, Professor Carpenter. Really, you look... Oh, and besides, I adore botany. It's my particular hobby.
Oh, really? Well, you never told me that before, Miss Markham.
Oh, I was afraid to. You were so imposing with a beard and all.
Well, You might be interested in some specimens of alpine polyanthes that were sent to me by a friend in Switzerland.
Switzerland? I used to go there for my holidays before the war.
You like Switzerland?
Oh, I love every part of it. The lakes, the mountains, the beautiful spring flowers. Oh, especially the flowers.
Oh, yes. It seems we have quite a lot in common, Miss Markham. I'm sorry we haven't talked before.
Oh, I am too. It is all the fault of the beard, I suppose.
Miss Markham, forgive me if this sounds foolish, but I feel that shaving off my beard is the most important thing I've done for 20 years.
Oh, it is. I'm sure it is. I'm ashamed that I've been so distant with you all the time. Oh, there were times when I almost spoke up. Times when you came in here, tired after day with your students at the university. Oh, you seemed so alone. The way I'm alone in the world. I'd like to have asked you to stay a while and talk with me. But some way or other, I wound up giving you your change and letting you go on your way.
You say you're all alone in the world?
Since my father died.
Well, did you never think of marrying?
Oh, my father was a very remarkable man. I never found anyone who seemed to measure up to what he led me to expect of men. And then the war came.
Miss Markham,
It's been so long since anyone called me by my first name. I'd like you to, if you don't mind. It's Marion.
Marion.
And yours?
Herbert.
How long have you been alone, Herbert?
Alone?
Oh, I knew you were a widower, of course, the first time I saw you.
A widower?
Oh, I can always tell. There's a certain sadness in a man's eyes. A sweet sadness, I think, when he's been married and then...
A widower? I never thought of it in quite that way.
Oh, perhaps I shouldn't be talking like this. But I've often wondered what she must have been like. Your wife, I mean.
Hermione? Not an easy woman to forget. Very strong. Always managing things. The house, my wardrobe, my friends. When we dined at a restaurant, she even ordered my food. She was always managing things. You might say she managed herself to death.
Oh, poor woman. She must have loved you very much. But she needn't have put herself out so. It's plain to see you don't need things managed for you. You need companionship, I think. Someone sympathetic with your work. But the last thing on earth you need is a manager.
How well you put it. The last thing on earth. That's the first time I thought of it, of course. But suddenly a whole new world opened up before my eyes. Marion and America and no more of Hermione's planning my life for me. By the time I got home, my mind was working overtime.
Well, at last. You certainly took long enough about it. What are you looking so pleased about?
I don't really know. Getting rid of the beard, perhaps. I feel 20 years younger.
You look even smaller. Your face looks triangular or something. I'd forgotten your chin was so weak. Oh, but never mind that. You can grow it back soon enough after Christmas. Where are you going?
Down to the cellar. I just bought this electric lantern, and I thought I'd put it away down there.
Now, whatever possessed you to buy a thing like that?
I don't know. I'd rather like this lantern. Might come in handy. Who knows?
Now, Herbert, don't start digging down there again. I've 100 things to do, putting the house in order before we leave. I want you to carry these boxes upstairs for me.
Yes, Hermione.
And if you're going down to the cellar, take this along and stuff it into the furnace.
But this is my old bathrobe. I may need it.
Oh, nonsense. I bought you a new one. Get rid of it. And don't start puttering down there with that devil's garden or whatever you call it.
I'm through digging, my dear. I think the pit is quite deep enough now for my devil's garden. It would all have to be carefully planned, of course. Just as carefully planned as Hermione was planning the trip to America. We both went about our respective engagements as the days passed. I spent all the time I could with Marion, and finally she consented. And then it was the last day, the big day, the day we were to sail for America.
Operator, are you there? I'm still waiting on that call to Salisbury. Oh, we'll put them on quickly. Hello? Is this Paul Holt & Sons? Mrs. Herbert Carpenter here. Did you receive my letter? Oh, good. Now remember, we'll be back for Christmas, and I want the job done without fail. What's that? Oh, no, I'm sure he doesn't suspect anything. Send the bill to me in New York as I instructed you. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, there you are, Herbert. Where have you been?
Backstairs. I dismissed the servants.
Dismissed the servants? But I've asked some friends in to a farewell tea. Go and tell them it's a mistake.
I'm afraid it's too late now. They've packed and gone.
Oh, you have messed up things properly. How many times have I told you to leave things to me? I make the plans around here.
Yes, Hermione.
You'll have to do better than this when I plan the trip home, or we'll never in the world be back for Christmas.
Back for Christmas. Must you keep saying that?
Well, why not? We are coming back for Christmas, aren't we?
Supposing I were offered a professorship in one of those wealthy American universities.
Nonsense. Americans care nothing for botany.
Luther Burbank was an American.
Well, that's different. What have you ever done except muck around in the dirt with a lot of roots and tubers?
They've asked me to lecture. That means something.
Of course they asked you to lecture. Americans are paid to hear any foreigner deliver a lecture once. Now, there's no use getting yourself in a state about this, Herbert. No doubt this extra money will come in very handy when we arrive back for Christmas. Precisely. And it's no good you're making a joke of it. Heaven knows where you'd be today if I hadn't got a sense of time.
Yes, my dear Hermione.
And since you've been so foolish as to dismiss the servants, you may empty the ashtrays and straighten up this room while we're waiting for the guests to arrive. I'm going upstairs to change. Call me when they get here.
Yes, Hermione. Yes, Hermione. Yes, Hermione. For 20 years, Hermione, always so right. Thought of everything. Well, not quite everything. She's dressing now. Safe to call Marion. Oh, if Marion were to change her mind now. If she had any idea I was not a widower. Hello? Hello? Marion? Herbert? No, my darling. Nothing's wrong. My plans are the same. Unless you've changed. Good. We'll meet in New York as we planned. Yes, I do love you, my darling.
Herbert?
I'm sorry, I can't talk any longer. Yes, I'll meet you in New York a week from tomorrow without fail. Goodbye till then.
Herbert, were you talking on the phone just now?
Yes, Hermione.
Whoever was it?
Freddie Sinclair, of course.
Oh, didn't I hear you say something about meeting somebody in New York?
Why, yes. Old Freddie said he might possibly get out to America before we leave, and I said, of course, we'd meet him there if he decides to go.
That seems very peculiar. But then all of your friends are peculiar.
Yes, Hermione.
And just look at your jacket. Have you been digging in that cellar again?
Yes, Hermione.
Well, there's no need for it. You can't possibly get that Devil's Garden thing finished. Go and change your clothes before the guests arrive.
Yes, Hermione.
Oh, never mind. I see somebody coming up the walk now. Go and let them in.
Yes, Hermione.
Herbert.
Yes, my dear.
Look out the window. There's Professor and Mrs. Hewitt. But who's that with them?
Why,
Precisely. Freddie Sinclair. Peculiar. You should have been talking to him on the phone not 3 minutes ago. And now here he is.
Yes. Yes, isn't it? But then, as you say, Hermione, all of my friends are peculiar.
Not half so peculiar as you. Digging in the cellar an hour before we leave for America. Just look at yourself. And now that I think of it...
Yes, Hermione?
Oh, never mind. Go and let them in.
You were going to ask me something, Hermione. About the hole I'm digging in the cellar.
Oh, good heavens. Stop rolling your eyes about that way. One would think you were digging a grave down there instead of a storage bin.
Yes, Hermione.
What's that?
I said yes, Hermione.
Oh, bother. Open the door and stop saying yes, Hermione.
I think, my dear, I've said it for the last time. Back for Christmas. Hermione was so positive we would be back for Christmas. That last afternoon, pouring tea for a few friends who had come in to say last-minute farewells, she kept reiterating.
Oh, I promise you, Mrs. Hewitt.
Remember, we absolutely must have you with us for Christmas.
Oh, we'll be back.
It's not absolutely certain, of course.
Herbert, what do you mean it's not certain? Of course it's certain.
After all, Herbert, old boy, you've contracted to lecture for only 3 months.
Quite right, but then, of course, anything may happen.
Oh, Herbert adores being unpredictable. Now, what other man would dig a great hole in the cellar on the very day he was leaving for America?
A hole in the cellar?
Yes. He's going to put some unclassified wild orchids down there. A devil's garden, if you please. Sounds mysterious. That's Herbert, though he's really quite simple once you find out what he's up to. Now, take that telephone call he put through to you a few moments before you arrived, Freddie.
To me?
Yes. Herbert wanted to surprise me about your plan to meet us in New York next month. That's why he called, of course, to ask you not to mention it.
But, my dear Hermione, Herbert couldn't possibly have telephoned me within the past hour. I've been walking in the park since 3.
He didn't telephone you?
Well, how could he? And as for my going to America...
Oh, no. Come, Freddie. You may as well own up. Hermione has found me out again.
But, Herbert, old chap, I really don't understand.
There. You see what a poor liar Herbert makes. He's red as a beetroot.
Aren't you ashamed of yourself, Professor? Stringing poor Hermione along like that. And as for you, Freddie, I'm furious you said nothing to us about going to America.
But look here, old girl, I've been trying to tell everyone that I have
no... stuff and nonsense. The game's gone on long enough. Perhaps Herbert's merely planning a surprise for me.
Yes, let's leave it at that, my dear.
Well, we must start getting ready. It was marvelous of you to come in to say goodbye. And don't worry about Herbert's little jokes. I will bring him back for Christmas. You may rely on it.
They all believed her. For years, she'd been promising me for dinner parties, garden parties, committees. And the promises had always been kept. This time, they wouldn't be. I'd seen to that. The servants were gone for good. The farewells all said. I had timed to the minute how long it would take to fill in the hole in the cellar, in my devil's garden. Upstairs in the bedroom, I undressed, folded my clothes over a chair, and put on my old bathrobe. Then I opened the door into Hermione's room.
Are you ready, Herbert?
Hermione, have you a moment to spare?
Of course, my dear. I've just finished.
Then do come in here for a moment. There's something rather extraordinary here.
Good heavens, Herbert, what are you lounging about in that filthy old bathrobe for? I told you to put it into the furnace.
I shall do it today, yes. I really will, I promise.
Well, high time. Now, what is it you want to show me?
In the bathroom here. Just look. Who in the world do you suppose dropped a gold chain down the bathtub drain?
Nobody has, of course. Nobody wears such a thing in this house.
Then what's it doing there?
I don't see anything.
Here. I'll hold this flashlight for you. If you lean right over, you can see it shining deep down.
Oh, such a lot of nonsense. Just visit. I don't see it, Herbert.
Go on looking, Hermione. In just a moment.
Herbert, I absolutely refuse to wait. Herbert, what are you doing? Take your hands off my neck.
I will, Hermione, just as soon as I've finished the arrangements for my trip to America.
What are you talking about?
You thought you were the only one who could plan things, didn't you, Hermione? Well, I've been making some plans of my own this past week. In exactly 2 minutes, you'll be dead, Hermione. You see, 2 minutes. I've planned it very accurately.
You'll never get away with it. Let me go.
I thought you'd say that, but I will get away with it. You won't mind the smell of the leaf mold down in the cellar when I take you there today. Yes, that's where you're going, Hermione. Into my devil's garden that annoyed you so much.
Oh.
The soil is full of clay. It won't settle too much. In a month or so, it won't even look as if it had been dug up.
My friends, they all expect me back for Christmas. If they don't hear from me, they'll wonder. If I don't come back, they'll start asking questions.
Oh, no, they won't. Because you'll write them letters, Hermione. On the typewriter, as you always do. They'll be signed H in that neat, cryptic way you always sign your notes to your friends.
Let me up.
No.
It won't work, Herbert. You never were any good at planning things.
Oh, but I've changed, my dear. I've learned from watching you all these years.
The lecture people in America, they'll expect you to be traveling with your wife.
I will be traveling with my wife. But her name will not be Hermione. Fortunately, they've never met you. I write a few letters home for you. Then fewer and fewer. Write letters signed with my own name. Always expecting to get back, but never quite able to. Keep the house 1 year, and then another and another. They'll get used to it. Might even come back alone in a year or two and clear it up properly. Say you died in America. Nobody will ever suspect you're lying under the floor of the cellar in this very house.
Oh, but it won't work, I tell you. That pit you dug in the cellar,
I can assure you, my dear Hermione, it will serve its purpose well. Sorry, my dear. I've got to get this done on schedule. You have just 5 seconds to say your prayers.
Oh, but you must listen. The cellar. Don't do it, Herbert. Herbert. Oh.
Hey. The water cut off at the main as I knew she would order it. She was so thorough, but so was I. Strangulation. Nothing to wash up. The electric current shut off exactly at 1 o'clock, just as she ordered it. She thought of everything. So did I. My nice new electric lantern. Plenty of light to work by in the cellar. The old bathrobe she wanted me to throw away came in handy now if there should be any chance blood stain. Then into the fire with it afterwards, the last evidence of my devil's garden. It was going well. Still an hour till I had to leave for the boat. The hold was almost filled. No. Oh, no, not now. Go away, please. Whoever you are, go away. Did I lock the front door? If it's the Wallingfords... Oh, no. Go away. Go away.
I say, Herbert, old thing.
Woo-hoo, Hermione.
Just keep calm, quiet. They won't look down in the cellar. Keep calm. They'll go away.
Where the dickens can they be?
Oh, the car's there.
Maybe they popped round to Liddell's.
Oh, it must be.
Hardware shops, maybe. Tempting the last minute.
Oh, not Hermione.
Shall I shout?
Oh, don't. Might not be sensible.
No harm in a shout, my love.
No, let's come in our way back. Hermione said they wouldn't be so sensible.
Oh, all right. Only I want a last drink with old Herbert. He'd be hurt, you know.
All right, let's hurry. We can be back by 6:30.
6:30. There's still time. After that, it was easy. Put the finishing touches on the Devil's Garden, dress fast, get out of the house before 6:30, take the boat trade to Southampton and board the ship for America. All according to plan. Hermione's plan. I say, Stuart.
Right, sir?
My wife is indisposed. She'll be taking her meals in our stateroom.
Oh, for the old voyage?
Yes, for the whole voyage.
Well, I trust your wife is feeling better this morning, Professor Carpenter.
Yes, a little. Not yet well enough to leave her cabin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, by the way, here's a copy of the radiogram you sent for your wife last evening.
Oh? Oh, thank you. I'll just check it over. I say, look here.
What is it? Did the typist make a mistake?
No. No, nothing important. She can correct it later. For a moment, I had the feeling that Hermione had been leaning over my shoulder again, correcting what I'd written, as she always did. I had written a radiogram to Professor Hewitt and his wife. Haven't been out of my cabin the whole beastly trip. Herbert, well, we now doubt we will be back for Christmas. The copy read, we no doubt will be back for Christmas. Exactly what Hermione would have written. The rest of the voyage was uneventful, and Marion and I met in New York and were married just as we'd planned. Just as we'd planned. Professor and Mrs. Carpenter, we have reservations, I believe.
Oh, yes. We've been expecting you, sir. Boy, take Professor and Mrs. Carpenter's luggage up to their suite. You know, Mrs. Carpenter, you're quite a surprise. Your letter reserving the rooms was so thorough. I was expecting an older, more forbidding sort of person, frankly, ma'am.
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, we're just married. But my letter reserving the room...
I wrote the letter, my dear, and signed it Mrs. Herbert Carpenter. Purely a joke.
Oh, what a cunning old fox you are, Herbert.
Now that I think of it, I am, rather.
Oh, I almost forgot. There's a letter for you, Mrs. Carpenter.
A letter for me? I wonder who on earth...
Well, we shall find out in good time. Come along, my dear. We're keeping the boy waiting. Nothing like a cold, brisk shower to put a man to rights.
Herbert, this letter...
Oh, yes, the letter. Dry my hair, will you, dear?
It seems to be a bill of some sort. From a building contract in Salisbury. Oh, bother. Dry your own hair.
Oh, thank you, my sweet. Let's see this bill or whatever it is.
It's very puzzling. Herbert. You were a widower, weren't you? I mean, Hermione isn't still alive.
I can assure you she is not. Let's have that letter. Dear Madam, this is to acknowledge your order, together with the keys to your house in Launceston Place. Our men had no difficulty in finding the place where your husband had begun the excavation in the cellar, but apparently changed his mind at the last moment and filled it in again. Oh, no.
What is it, Herbert?
Our men will begin digging tomorrow, and you may rest assured that it will be a professional job and will be completed in ample time for your surprise Christmas present to your husband. We are happy to be conspirators with you in this thoughtful gesture and hope that Professor Carpenter will be pleased at the results of our work on what he so quaintly calls his Devil's Garden. Very truly yours, Paul Holt & Sons Contractors.
What does it mean, Herbert?
It means that Hermione was right. I will be back for Christmas.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you Back for Christmas by John Collier. Adapted for radio by Robert Tallman, with Paul Frees as Herbert, Eleanor Audley as Hermione, and Marta Metrovich as Marion. Music is conceived and conducted by Cy Fuhrer. Next week...
You are lost in the London fog, exhausted and frantic, unsure if the figures looming around you are real or creatures of your fear. And behind you, pursuing you, intent on killing you, lurks a murderer from whom you must escape.
Next week, we escape with Algernon Blackwood's ghostly story, Confession. Good night, then, until this same time next week, when again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.